Welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you are well. I am your host, Dave McHugh, broadcasting out of our Hoopsville studios in the greater Baltimore area. Once again, lots to cover in the next 2 hours, so we'll cover it here. We hope you're enjoying the show. We hope you enjoy the entire show. This is our last Thursday show until the new year, 2016. We'll talk about that as well. Plenty to get to across the board, as it always is in Division III basketball. Nothing has changed in that in many years. We too have new top 25s. Of course, we already have new results in that as well. So lots to discuss throughout. So if you got questions for us, you know how to get a hold of us. It's always the same way. On Twitter, at D3Hoopsville, or hashtag Hoopsville. On Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Join us on, or email us as well. Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Certainly will take any questions that you may have. A lot of our guests tonight are pre-taped. We'll warn you that now. So not any questions that we can necessarily take for our coaches, but we can always get it to them later and maybe see if they'll take a question or two as well. As we said, new top 25's out. No changes at the top. In both polls, the top two teams stayed the same. In both polls, the number 4 team became the number 3 team, and then it changed from there. St. John Fisher took the biggest hit on the men's poll, falling from 10th to 24th. I'm not sure who the biggest riser might have been. Might have been Christopher Newport, going from 13th to 21st, or 21st to 13th, I should say, on the men's side, a jump of 8 spots. Not sure you can get any higher. Brooklyn certainly jumped 7. Of course, Brooklyn has gone and lost, unfortunately. We will get to that momentarily. On the women's side, I think I don't even know who the biggest jump there might have been. It might have been Whitewater, who moved from 20th to 15th. Of course, Muhlenberg followed 5 behind them with a 21 to 16 move. Williams moved from 22 to 17. Scranton moved from 25 to 18, so a jump of 7 there for the Lady Royals. The biggest fall, I'm not really sure. It might have been Carthage coming out, but they only fell from 23. Well, FDU Florham fell from 14 to 23, and FDU Florham most likely will fall out of the poll due to the fact that they lost yet again this week. Let's take a look so far on the men's side of things. Not as much carnage as we normally see. Stevens Point lost to North Central. This was a heck of a game on Wednesday night. 63-49. Stevens Point struggling on offense. We'll see what happens with Stevens Point here. Ranked at number 9. I know with my top 25, they fell kind of into the middle of the top 25. We'll see what voters do here, because now Stevens Point's sitting 3-3 and clearly struggling. Granted, they're playing good teams, but North Central wasn't exactly any loss I think many thought the Pointers would take. Got a game coming up on Saturday against Lawrence. Trinity, Connecticut lost to Eastern Connecticut, who's receiving votes by 8, 57-49. That might be a good sign for Eastern Connecticut, who may be rebounding from a little bit of a rougher start than anticipated. Trinity's got a game against Susquehanna coming up on Friday, and then whoever won or lost, depending on the results, on Saturday. So they've got 2 more games coming up this weekend. Brooklyn, as we mentioned, they defeated Medgar Evers at the beginning of the week, 95-71, and then lost to Albertus Magnus, 106-89. Not sure. You can go on the chat boards and see what many thought. Granted, it's an Albertus Magnus slant there. Of course, Albertus Magnus had lost earlier in the week, I believe. But Brooklyn takes its first loss. Not sure what happened with that one. Sounds like defense, again, may have been a cause. They've got Lehman coming up in conference action on Friday. An odd day to, I don't know. I don't want to read into that. Salisbury also lost again. They're now 6-2. They lost to Penn State Harrisburg. Sounds like a game of maybe expecting to roll over Harrisburg, and Harrisburg's a little bit more of a challenge than people give them credit for. And I think that's what happened there for Salisbury. We'll see if they stay in the poll. They're 21, and at 6-2, they've got some room. There's 88 points down to 25th, so there's room to fall. We'll see how far they fall. Other than that, nobody else lost in the top 25. There were 4 other losses in the receiving votes category. We mentioned Albertus Magnus lost their first loss of the season to Fitchburg State, 91-85. Williams lost to Oneonta, 75-62. I heard from a few people that it was not pretty. Williams getting votes, but maybe some people questioning why. Apparently not that good a team. One person gave me a comparison. They finished 6th in the UAA, if you can believe it, and thought they would finish maybe 3rd or 4th in the SUNYAC. Take that as what you will. Aurora 5-1, losing their first game to Marion 98-96. And St. Vincent lost to Catholic, who's receiving votes 80-56. Catholic's been all over the place, to say the least. On the women's side of things, as we mentioned, not as much turnover as we would expect. Certainly plenty of movement, but not a lot of up and down, or more up and down than in and out. Top 25, pretty much nothing's happened. A bunch of teams are idle, but FDU Florham, we mentioned losing to Drew 61-55. That's the only loss in the top 25, and the only other loss is in the receiving votes category. That's Carthage. They're now 4-3. 71-61. Heard from their coach over the weekend. Carthage will be at the D3Hoops.com Classic. He says they're looking forward to that. I hope they're not looking past their opponents now. They've got lacrosse coming up. UW lacrosse. We'll see how that transpires for them. Let's talk about who we've got coming up on this show. A bunch of teams that maybe you're not paying attention to or are off to good starts. Now, the first one you're probably paying attention to because they are the number 11th ranked team in the country on the men's side, and that's John Carroll men's basketball. We'll talk to Mike Moran coming up here on the show. But the rest are all off to terrific starts in some shape or fashion, and either not getting any votes, not getting any top 25 attention at all, which is fine. That's not necessarily why they're on the show, but it's more about what's going on with them and their terrific start. We'll talk to Juniata men's basketball coach Greg Curley. They're off to a 7-0 start, including a big win over Scranton in conference play. We'll stay in the Mid-Atlantic region and talk to Ursinus women's basketball. Margaret White, first-year head coach there. You may look at their record and go, well, why are you talking to a 4-3 team? Well, listen, they started 0-3 and lost to some decent teams, and now have rattled off 4 straight, all in the Centennial Conference, including a win over Johns Hopkins, who was supposed to finish second. Hopkins off to a 2-5 start. Not sure what's going on with Nancy Funk's side, but Margaret White's side is on top of the Centennial early on. We'll talk to her about that. What's it like to be a first-year coach, etc. Staying with women, and then we'll head west. We'll head to Wisconsin with Wisconsin River Falls. Cindy Holbrook will join us. That team is undefeated. Granted, have not entered conference play, and they won't until January, thanks to the simple fact that Wisconsin Superior is no longer in the conference. We'll talk to her about that start. You know, that's a very good start for River Falls. We'll talk to her about the significance of that start and what she's expecting from what would be considered a young team. Certainly some seniors on it, but that's not the ones who are contributing necessarily. Of course, we'll also go to Northwestern. Tom Grosz will join us. Northwestern having a polar opposite start to this year than they had last year. You might remember last year they made the NCAA tournament, got to the Sweet 16, but what you might not remember is they lost 9 of their first 11 games. Yeah, they lost 9 of their first 11 games last season before winning 18 straight and finishing 20-10 in the Sweet 16 of the tournament. They're off to a 8-1 start, 7-1 start. Terrific start by comparison. The question is, they're playing in now a crowded UMAC with Wisconsin Superior coming over. 16 games that they've already started conference play for the first time before January. We'll talk to him about that as well. So that's all coming up here on Hoopsville. Again, if you want to interact with us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville on your Twitter account, you can join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Join us on Twitter, or we mentioned that, or via email as well, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. By the way, we also have a chat room if you happen to be on the YouTube page. If you want to use that, I believe you're going to have to log in. We are monitoring it, though I will tell you we're not monitoring it that well, but we are monitoring it, so feel free to use that if you'd like. Last Sunday, I should say, we ended with an ad-lib rant. I wasn't intending to rant, and I ended up ranting nonetheless. The rant was regarding video in Division III and coaches who want all their games archived. A lot of coaches want those archives hidden from the public so we can't see them and other coaches can't see them, blah, blah, blah. I actually heard from a number of coaches after that rant, many of them agreeing with me, believe it or not, thinking that some of their brethren are crazy. One of the messages I got was from a guy who uses the Synergy group. Now, there's a lot of different ways of exchanging video in conferences. It's all digital nowadays. They don't send DVDs and VHS tapes. There's a number of them out there. We could go through all the names. It's not relevant. This one happens to use Synergy. And he said to me, by the way, I just hit the tab to see how many schools I can go watch. He said, I've gotten only through the letter C, meaning he's gone alphabetically, A, B, C, and I'm at 160, including NBA, college. 160 teams that he can go watch on the Synergy program. And yet we can't watch a basketball game if we miss it live. Anyway, we will write that up and hopefully have it out tomorrow. Knock on wood. Might come out a little bit later than that instead. But we're working on it. We've been busy prepping for a big week in Division III next week with the football championships and the Gagliardi Trophy. Shameless plug. We'll be on the air for that on Wednesday. Excuse me. We'll be on the air for Wednesday's show for the Gagliardi Trophy and then the championship game on Friday from Salem, Virginia. Of course, that's where we're headed for the men's championship coming up in March as well. My 16th trip going to Salem for basketball championship alone coming up this year. This is my 5th or 6th trip for the Stagg Bowl, and I've been down there at least 1 or 2 other occasions for some other things. So I've gotten to know the trip down I-81 and the western side of Virginia pretty darn well. Got a chance to see my alma mater play last night. I just bring that up because I saw one of the crazier comebacks in a long time. Goucher hadn't had a home game all season, and so I finally got a chance to start announcing for my alma mater, and they took on Hood in non-conference action. They were down 32-15 with 5.5 minutes left to go in the first half. They eventually closed that on a 16-2 run to end the half to draw within 34-31, and then continued the run into the second half. Grand total 51-15 run. Took a sizable lead. Interesting enough, Hood went on their own run, about 23-12 at the end, to try and cut the deficit, but they couldn't get within 8. But Goucher had it well in hand. Hood had it well in hand. And it was crazy. Now, some of the officiating you could certainly discuss. I don't think it was the greatest. There was some that was fine. It was interesting to watch, but it was also first-year coaches. Another theme this year is seeing these first-year coaches that go at it. For Goucher, it was their alum, Tom Rose, who has come to take over the program. They've already hit their win total from last year with 4 wins. They are 4-5 now on the season. Hood, first-year head coach, Chad Dittman, taken over for his father, who retired and remains AD at Hood. Tom Dickman was there. It was good to see Tom, but Chad was there as well, and he's got a good team under him. So does Goucher, but just one of crazy comebacks, and that's what's great about basketball. Sometimes, even if it looks like it's over, it's not over. Anything is certainly possible during a game, as many of us have come to know. Once again, a reminder who we've got coming up on this show. We'll be getting to them in just a matter of minutes. John Carroll's men's basketball coach Moran will be joining us momentarily. We'll talk to Juniata's Greg Curley, Ursinus' Margaret White, Wisconsin River Falls' Cindy Holbrook, and Northwestern's Tim Grosz, all coming up here on the show. A reminder again, this is our last Thursday show of this part of the season. We will be back on the air with Thursday shows in a month. It will be a month before we're back up, just due to the calendar. That will be January 7th. And this is why we made a point of adding Sunday shows this year, and obviously that will become a permanent part of the structure. But that's because we can get 2 more Sunday shows in here. This Sunday, the 13th, and then Sunday, the 20th, once we've returned from Salem. We'll be able to get some more shows together for that. And be able to talk about Division III basketball up until the 20th. And so instead of taking what would have ended up being a 3.5-week break, because we wouldn't have gotten back on the air until January 3rd after going off the air tonight normally, we're able to go another 2 weeks, a week and a half, let's just call it, of basketball coverage with 2 more shows, and then just be kind of silent, as it were, for 2 weeks. So a major difference there. Obviously, we'll go over the holidays, be busy at the D3Hoops.com Classic as well. But that just allows us to shorten the distance. We had a lot of time between when we were on the air last year and this year, and it was going to be even longer this time around. And we wanted to avoid that if at all possible. So just a heads up, last Thursday show, but we will be on the air this coming Sunday, the 13th. We'll also be on the air now on the 20th before taking a break for the holidays and returning on January 3rd. I think that's about it. Trying to remember if we've got any other major news. By the way, I want to point out on d3hoops.com, we now have regional writers in each of the 8 regions. If no one knew the particulars in the past, for the last few years, we've had a writer per 2 regions. So, for example, there was the Northeast and East region. There was the Atlantic and Mid-Atlantic region. I'm not sure if it was South and West and Great Lakes and Central, or I don't remember how that all broke down from there, but that's how we broke it down. We now have a writer from each of the 8 regions putting a story together each week, along with Around the Nation articles each week. Plenty of Division III coverage. We have taken Division III coverage at d3hoops.com and grown it by almost double, at least regionally reporting-wise, but certainly significantly more than that. There's plenty to check out online, and I certainly encourage you to do so. Already seen some great articles this season. It's fun to check out what's being written about Green Mountain, Susquehanna, LaGrange women, Rippon's men, and more. It's certainly fun to see all of that online, and I encourage you to check it out as well. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will talk John Carroll men's basketball in the OAC. Now, later in the show, you're going to hear me make some weird reference about our westward trek. For some reason in my head earlier when I taped 1 or 2 of these segments with coaches who weren't available to join us live, I, for some reason, had this mentality that we were literally starting on the East Coast and working our way west tonight. That's not the case. We're starting in the Great Lakes. We're starting in Ohio. We will then head eastbound for the next 2 guests and then make the leap westbound. I don't know how I got the order out of my head, but that's what we did. So anyway, coming up, John Carroll's Mike Moran will join us here on the show. We'll talk about the 7-0 start, one of the best in program history. We'll talk about the OAC with Mount Union and Marietta, and certainly the battle that will be, and the battle that will be the Great Lakes, when that will become very important come tournament time in March. And we'll talk about a good friend in the OAC and why I think I finally figured out where that number 1 vote went to a team no one thought would get a number 1 vote in the OAC preseason poll. I think I figured it out. We'll talk to Coach Moran about that next. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. If you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, or join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. More Hoopsville with Coach Mike Moran from John Carroll coming up next.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
At the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, or join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Plenty to talk about tonight, and we're going to get our way through it as we normally do here on the show, and we certainly love any interactions that you may have with us as well. Theme of the show pretty much is all these teams that maybe aren't getting much of attention. Now, this one is certainly getting some national attention. Don't want to say they aren't, because it's pretty obvious that they are as a number 11 team on the men's top 25. But they're off to one of the best starts in program history, and I think that is certainly where I think the biggest point is, and it's kind of building off the NCAA tournament appearance at least last week. So I wanted to talk to him, mainly too because I'm voting in the top 25, and I've got plenty of questions about this squad. So joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is Mike Moran from John Carroll. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it as well. Again, 7-0 start. It's been a decade since that has happened, at least 7 straight wins to start the season. You go back to 2004, 2005 when you ripped off 13 straight. I think that season might have been when you got all the way to the Sweet 16 at home. I kind of remember coming to those games. But nonetheless, this is a tremendously good start for you guys this year.
Well, I can't argue with you there.
Well, good. All right, then.
You're not going to get a debate out of me on that. Yeah, we're delighted. We're happy. We played some pretty quality teams, and it just things have started well.
You started off the season in St. Mary's, Maryland. I wish you had called me before you'd done that. I know you traveled practically right past my house to go to that game. I would have warned you that besides the team and a wonderful facility and a crazy head coach, by the way, I know him very well, so I'm wondering if he's listening, there's not much else to do out there. But what drew you out there? You played Transylvania in the first game and then the host St. Mary's in the second one.
Well, the problem is just scheduling. Usually if the better, or maybe the reputation of the team, the harder it is to the schedule. Ideally speaking, you'd want to get top teams in your region on your schedule and that, but it's difficult many a times in that, and it's also a good opportunity for us to get on the road and do some nice things for the kids too. I've learned over the decades that kids and myself, you forget who you played and the scores of the games, but you remember things like going to Graceland and seeing Elvis's place and other things along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you took on Transylvania and St. Mary's, Birmingham Southern later on when you traveled to Crested View, Kentucky. That's a lot of travel, Coach. Back and forth from the eastern shore of Maryland and then back down to Kentucky. Granted, Kentucky not nearly as far from your campus as Maryland was. You played those games at Thomas More, and then you took on the little well-known Rust squad there at Thomas More, then LaRoche, and then you got into conference play. You got to appreciate the fact that you were able to keep that momentum going as you took on Heidelberg, Ohio Northern to start conference action here.
Yeah, even like LaRoche, at the time we played them, they didn't have a great record, but boy, they just won 3 straight and they beat 3 quality teams. So, that kind of makes us feel good too. That teams that we have played have seemed to be faring much better as the season goes on too. And Ohio Northern's always tough, and Heidelberg just had a nice win the other day over at Carnegie Mellon. So,
yeah.
It's basketball though, Dave. It's the hardest thing in the world to predict. That's for sure.
That's the truth. The other thing that jumps out at me on a few of these games, and there's several reasons probably behind it, but they're all high scoring. 92 for Transylvania, 100 for St. Mary's, 117 against Birmingham Southern, 120 against Rust. You kind of came back to earth a little bit with LaRoche, Heidelberg, and Ohio Northern, 87, 82, and 86 respectively. But overall, you've got a bit of a high-scoring bunch here.
Well, I think it's because of our system, our platooning we do. We try to, use our, the numbers as best we can, and it creates more possessions for us, more shots at the basket, and it's just we try to play at an uncomfortable pace for the other team, and it's been working. Believe me, I'm no different than any other coach. If it didn't work, we would have gotten rid of the system many, many years ago, 25 years ago, in fact. But it still works for us, so we continue to platoon and play a lot of people.
One interesting thing is, and people see your system. You talk about the platooning. It's interesting. It's not the system. It's not the one that Loyola Marymount D1 advocated, and obviously Grinnell is famous for now of running. But you do have the mentality, substitution-wise, where you will sub a bunch of guys, if not all five, at the same time. But you're not that run-and-gun system necessarily.
No, you know what, Dave? I'll tell you what. We kind of stems back from this. This is way before your time. Football, when LSU in football won the national championship, I think it was around 1959. They had a group they brought in there called the Chinese Bandits. They're just bunch of guys that got out there and they played as long as they were successful and they got things done. And it's like a hockey game. 5 in and 5 out.
Yeah.
And you think about hockey's been around centuries longer than basketball, and they got it right, I think. With that type of system, and it creates, I think, a lot of problems for other teams, just because you're really, in a sense, preparing for two separate teams out there. We do some different things with each unit, and it's amazing how often one maybe our starting unit doesn't play as well as the other unit that comes in there, and vice versa. So, and I tell you, there's other things too. It's just that you have, instead of having 5 or 7 happy players, you got about 12 happy players and 12 happy sets of parents.
Yeah.
As argument, it takes a special kind of kid to play in the program, though. One that maybe is not, really into themselves, or has this, we never promise any recruit, X amount of minutes or things like that. You have to, you got to be part of a team in this type of program.
Well, you played.
Like I said, knock on wood, it's worked for us.
Sure. Well, you've played 11 guys in all 7 of your games. You played 13 in at least 6, and you've played 17 in at least 5. So obviously, it shows you're willing to go deep on the bench. And as much as you're putting up 97 points, I'm also blown away a little bit by the fact that you don't have and granted, this comes down to minutes, I realize, but you don't have like 1 or 2 guys that are getting a ton of points. Of those who have played all the games so far, David Lenan is leading at 13.3 points a game. Will Starks at 12.4. I'm going to screw up Antonio's last name, so I'm just going to let you do it. 11.
Vianchek.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Tony Vianchek.
Yeah. Vianchek. Actually, I can get that. 11.5 points a game. 9.5 from Ryan. Is it Farrager? Farrager. And Doug Caputo at 9.3. 9 points from Danny Wallach. I mean, you go down this. You got other guys at just about 9, about 7. It's certainly a well-balanced offense as well.
Our big guys, like Simon and Danny Hennessy, and everybody seems to contribute. And to be honest with you, in the beginning we were shooting the ball very well, and Dave, as of late, we've had a few games where we really kind of tanked from the 3-point arc, and that, and we're trying to recapture that. So I think even when you're scoring, in the high 80s and that with a percentage shooting like that, it tells you that the system itself is winning games. It's not so much the perimeter shots or something like that. We're delighted to be where we're at.
It's interesting because, and by the way, you may have played more guys than I did. Antonio's name is in there twice on the stat sheet, so forgive me. Maybe Antonio's played, so it's 12 guys who've played in all 7. But you look at this roster, you got 4 seniors on it, but you've got a whole mess of underclassmen. You have a deep roster. Not surprising because of the platoon system, but I just mean in general. What's that mean, thus, for this team to get off onto the start that it's gotten under certainly good leadership, but such a wealth of underclass experience?
Well, again, Dave, that's kind of the beauty of platooning. I mean, you really establish depth from year to year. I mean, you got, 12 guys, like you mentioned, that are seeing major minutes, primary minutes, and of that 12, of the 12, you're going to get at least half, 3/4 of those kids coming back the year after.
Yeah.
So it's easier to blend in. I mean, it's, you know, if you take maybe a program that, you know, have two primary players that play about 35 minutes a game, and that, man, you lose those two guys, and that's, you know, what is that, 40% of your team right there.
Yeah.
So, you know, you build up. I think you build up that depth. You know, it's just like anything. When you play people, they gain experience. When you have experience, that helps you. That's for sure.
Talking with Mike Moran here, head coach at John Carroll, and off to a 7-0 start. Of course, 2-0 in conference play. And, Coach, that's the other thing. You got two good wins against Heidelberg and Ohio Northern. Maybe not two teams who are going to fight for the top, but two teams who can cause plenty of headaches in the middle of that conference. Mount Union and Marietta were expected to be first and second, with you finishing third. At least that's what the preseason pundits, you being the coaches, thought about this. How do you see this OAC shaking out?
Well, you know, Dave, you've been following it for a while. You know, it's certainly a lot like the OAC in football, where, you know, you have Mount Union
and everybody else.
And then you have everybody else. You know, it's like last year. You had 4 teams. You know, in the last 3 years, we probably had at least 3 to 4 teams that could have won it, you know, going into the last couple weeks of the season. And it's a grind. It truly is. You know, if you look at, one team from top to bottom, there's so much parity in our conference. And, you know, if you compare that with other conferences, I don't think you see that. So, I mean, it's so easy to drop a game, especially on the road. I'll tell you what, there's not too many nights you can sleep with a smile on your face or, you know, relax. You know, there's truly nothing to look forward to in the OAC from week to week, except I should take that the end of the season. That's why at my age you start looking forward to that.
I can understand that entirely, Coach. Well, the one curiosity I have for it is, I mean, this conference has always been competitive, but it's gotten deep at the top and quickly in the last couple of years. And that's obviously you had to change some of your mentality and strategy, I assume. But how much has it changed even the matchups at the bottom of this conference?
Well, you know, the teams are, you know, you look at, you know, your Baldwin Wallace, your Capital, and Ohio Northerns, and you know, those teams, you know, have always had strong teams and fielded strong teams, and you know, they're still in the hunt. I mean,
yeah.
You know, we're in the week 2 of the season here, and I tell you what, it once surprised me. You know, of the 10 teams, you know, 8 you know, could easily you know, compete for this championship in that time. It's, you know, like you mentioned earlier, it's balanced. It truly is. And, you know, if you don't bring everything to the table each game, you're going to go home with a frown on your face.
Coming up on Saturday, you're going to travel to Wilmington, and then you're home against Marietta a week later before you'll take your break. I feel horrible for you, Coach. You got to go all the way down to Daytona, Florida. That's the worst thing in the world for you, especially right off of a great lake like yourself, to suffer and have to go down to Daytona, Florida in the middle of December. It's horrible. But you'll take on Rockport State and Bridgewater State down there. So you got 2 more conference games that are obviously hugely important before you get a little bit of a break and can go down and play some non-conference foes to at least shake things up.
Yeah, you know, it's always been, I always thought that in our conference, if you can hold your own at home and, you know, at least split on the road in our conference, you're going to be in the hunt near the end. You know, and in regards to leaving Cleveland, we've had such a nice winter up here. The weather, I don't know if we're looking forward to this trip.
I know. I'm surprised you booked it, to be honest with you. I really am. I mean, it's not like you're expecting, 5-6 feet by then. I'm really surprised.
Well,
one interesting thing, though. Last year, the OAC got 3 teams in the NCAA tournament. You guys get that first round game. Unfortunately, we're unceremoniously punted by Virginia Wesleyan. But what's that mean for this conference to get that many teams in, and on top of that, for you guys to be one of them?
Well, you got to earn it. I mean, I thought deservingly so. We've seen that with other conferences on this side of the Mississippi. I'm not going to name them, but there's other ones that have gotten it, and I think rightfully so. We had some key wins out of conference last year. I think maybe one of the biggest ones, we had a victory over St. Norbert right in the beginning here, and you don't know at that time how big that would be, and then we were able to beat Marietta and Mount Union once. So, and those guys, their teams actually, proved their worth too outside the conference, and that, you have to do that because within the conference, everybody's going to take a couple licks, and that's no one's going to go through unblemished. That's for sure, and so. You try to play some good people. The only problem is when you schedule outside the conference, you just never know how teams are going to be. One thing, when you're on the road, you're always going to draw the best team the first night. That's kind of the rule of thumb. And you got to hope that you're playing well together.
I'll switch gears briefly, if you don't mind. The OAC vote at the beginning of the season. I'll get to that. But my question is, you obviously the OAC shook a little bit at the beginning of the season, is what I'm trying to get at, when Coach Damon Goodwin at Capital announced that he was going to take the year off to fight cancer. You and he came into the OAC at the same time. I'm sure you guys know each other well. I mean, I think some people would classify you as friends. How did that news first off, I assume you probably knew ahead of time, but how did that news affect you, or how's it affected you, or how did you take it when you heard it?
Well, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Damon. I mean, he's an excellent coach. He's a competitor. I would like to think he's a younger version of me, in a sense. The only thing, he's a little better looking and younger. But you know what? I mean. And I know your other question is, how did somebody vote for somebody outside of Marietta?
I've gotten word. I gotten word that I know where that vote came from, Coach.
Well, you know what? I tell you what. It's a crapshoot all the time. The OAC. And I tell you what, I'm going to put my money on on guys that have done it continually over the many years, like Damon has. He's always had a great program. Capital has still a great program, and I tell you what, if I was wagering at a casino in that, I would, I'd put a few chips always on one of his teams. That's for sure.
I was going to say, was this also maybe a little tip of the hat to him?
No, it's just you don't have respect for him. I mean, respect for what he does, and the quality of his program and so forth. And, just the number of battles we've had over the years and that stuff. I mean, it's like you come out and you feel like you're in a heavyweight fight half the time. And that, so I feel very strong towards, him and what he does and so forth.
Well, it's a tremendous tip of the hat by you. I applaud you for it. Let me ask you this, though. The response in the OAC, the response in the Great Lakes has been incredible. There was some OAC NCAC games where they raised money to help, fight cancer, for lack of a better description, in his honor, and obviously with his thoughts in mind. I know the OAC has rallied in some capacity around this. He's very well respected in that region, as are you. This has hit close to home for everybody, and this has been very emotional for everybody.
I think, Dave, every family, has in some way, shape, or form been hit with that awful disease. My parents, I had a little bout of it myself. And nothing that is like Damon or that stuff. And you know what? You realize that, the way modern medicine is nowadays, that eventually they'll they're going to come up with something. We're just hoping guys like myself and Damon are around to take advantage of those,
I agree. Yeah.
those remedies and that stuff. So I think that's, why probably the NCAA, especially basketball, has really taken this project to heart.
Well, it's certainly a nice ode by you guys in the entire conference. I know he probably is well aware of the support from the conference, and I certainly am very impressed from afar as well. I appreciate you taking the amount of time you did to talk to me, Coach. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the way. I'll freely admit, I don't know if you've read my blogs, but I sit there voting for you going, I'm apprehensive. I don't know what this Blue Streak squad is going to be like. I've seen you guys have the potential and just not be able to pull it off, but this 7-0 start has certainly got my head turned. I appreciate you coming on and talking a little bit about your team for me. As always, though, I give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
I appreciate, personally, I appreciate this, what you have done for Division III basketball. Believe me, you and I both know that Division III basketball is centered around, kids that know why they're in school, that, they're searching to get those diplomas that are going to help them later on in life. And it's a special quality person. We're blessed as Division III coaches with just great kids that, they have their heads, on their shoulders squarely. They know why they're in school. And that's what makes it neat. I mean, that you're working with really and truly student athletes. And hey, I thank God and the lucky stars that I've been able to hang on and at this level for such a long time.
Well, I'm glad I can chat with you once again. Looking forward to seeing how far you guys can go this season and take this. And good luck to you. And if you happen to talk to Coach Goodwin at any point in time, send him our best for us, could you?
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Coach. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Coach Moran joining us here on Hoopsville. Again, John Carroll off to that tremendous 7-0 start. Best start since 2005 when they strung it together 13 straight. I can't get to that season fast enough. I just remember I got a chance to go to John Carroll for some basketball games. Heck of a Sweet 16 round there. It was themselves, Heidelberg, Guilford, and UT Dallas. The fans wanted John Carroll Heidelberg in that Elite Eight game for a chance to Salem. The visitors decided to spoil the party. It ended up being Guilford with Tyler Sanborn and UT Dallas in that second Elite Eight game, and ended up Guilford moving on. So pretty impressive. Thank you, Coach Moran, for joining us. When we come back, we got plenty more to talk about. Coach Greg Curley from Juniata will join us. We also still have Ursinus' Margaret White. We have River Falls' Cindy Holbrook and Northwestern's Tim Grosz, all before we wrap up the show. Plenty ahead, so stay tuned. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
At the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. I want to thank our previous guest, Mike Moran from John Carroll, for joining us on the show. We're off and running here on Hoopsville, still in the first hour. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Of course, the theme of the show is really the teams that are catching our attention. Certainly, John Carroll is nationally ranked, but still off to the best start in program history, or at least close to it. The rest of these interviews are going to be teams that are off to tremendous starts, maybe not getting nationally ranked or getting votes. Maybe they are. But more importantly, they're just off to good starts, and they're catching our attention for whatever varying reasons. Having these extra shows this year, certainly we're used to Thursdays, but having Sunday shows is allowing us to maybe talk to a few extra coaches. That includes some of those that maybe when we get later into conference play, we just don't get a chance to talk to. And certainly goes for the team here that we're about to talk to. Landmark Conference, supposed to be Catholics to win, with maybe Susquehanna, according to the coaches, in the running, and certainly Scranton finishing out the top three. After that, who knows? Well, one team that's making waves is Juniata, mainly because they've already got a win over Scranton, which certainly helps start the season along. So joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is their head coach, Greg Curley. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time. First and foremost, 7-0 start. You're 2-0 in conference play. Just how you drew it up, right?
Well, yeah, I guess you'd take it every year, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a tremendous start. Win over Allegheny, Casanova, Penn State, Altoona, Washington and Jefferson, Marymount, Elizabethtown, and now Scranton. Now, I wouldn't say you played a ton of world beaters at the beginning, but you've been building.
Right.
Certainly, Marymount is trying to turn their program around. Washington and Jefferson's usually at least in the conversation. Elizabethtown may be struggling, but they're certainly a well-coached program. But that win over Scranton, I think that one's the one that jumps out at me. That's a solid win over a program that you guys had struggled with over the last few years.
Yeah. I think, a lot about your schedule is when you play people.
Yeah.
I think we did. I think we've had kind of the benefit of a schedule that leans in our direction. We've got a lot of programs there that are under transition, and anytime you play those teams early in the year, I think you probably have an advantage. But, when we got Scranton, that was their first league game. They had a bye the first week game, so maybe, we had a league game under our belt. I think that probably helped us early in the game. And, it's anytime you can beat a championship-level program like that, that's always something that, to feel good about. But we need to learn from it, and hopefully it helps us get better, and we can move on and be really much better by the time we hit the bulk of league play in January.
Yeah, league play will restart for you guys on January 2nd when you take on Drew and then Goucher. Both games at home, so that's certainly a benefit for you to get things kind of re-kicked. You'll also play a non-conference game against Eastern then shortly after that. But you got a couple more games coming up here. You'll play non-Division III Penn State York then on Friday, and then another team on Saturday in a tournament, and then you'll play Pitt Bradford on the 19th before taking a break. So you're kind of just pacing yourselves out here the rest of this part of the schedule.
Yeah, this is a tough. For everybody right now. Our guys go into finals next week, and I think the way finals go now, a lot of our guys have exams today and yesterday. So, we'll see how we can handle the challenge. We play Penn State York Friday night. They're explosive. They're a dangerous team. They've beaten their share of Division III programs the last few years, so we have to be ready to play. And then I think whoever we play Saturday, either Randolph or Carnegie Mellon, are both very talented and offer a really big challenge. So I think we're excited for the weekend to see what we can do coming off the win against Scranton, see how we handle kind of the academic pressures that our guys face. And, again, just keep trying to get better and hopefully be prepared again in January.
Yeah, again, Randolph certainly well coached, and as you mentioned, Carnegie Mellon, a very good team as well. So you're going to have a good test at least on Saturday, no matter how tomorrow turns. Listen, this program's been kind of going through waves, as it were. We're not that far removed from the 19-10 season in 2012 and the 21-9 season in 2013. And I vividly remember you pulling me aside at the Goucher gym when I think I didn't vote for you in the top 25 maybe, and said, come on, give us some credit. You guys had a really good squad, but it was a tough conference battle. I have this feeling, this year you're off to a tremendous start after a tough 12-13 campaign last year. I have this feeling that this start with what looks like now maybe a much more wide-open conference race than anticipated earlier on is giving you guys a good chance?
Well, I mean, we like our chances. I just think I think we're just worried about ourselves and see if we can get better. I mean, we've got I just really like our group. They really work hard. They play very well together. I'm having as much fun coaching these guys as I've had, and I think anytime you feel that way coming every day to the gym, I think you can see it in the guys. It gives you your best chance to be good. But I think while the conference race is wide open, I kind of get the sense that's because there's a lot of really good teams this year. I think it's as competitive a league as I've been a part of, and so I think there's a lot of challenges, and I don't think we're ahead of ourselves in any way. I mean, in the end, we've really just won 2 home conference games, and there's a lot of work to be done.
I'll talk a little bit more conference, then we'll pivot to your team. But you're off to a 2-0 start. You're tied with Susquehanna at the top, and Drew, who's off to a 2-0 start. Susquehanna also 7-0. Drew 3-4. Like I said at the beginning, the coaches poll had Catholic number 1, Susquehanna number 2, Scranton number 3. I don't have it memorized past that point. Susquehanna certainly kind of caught me by surprise. You guys are now off to a good start. Catholic struggling at 5-3 and 1-1 in conference play. Scranton's 5-2 and 0-1 in conference play, but no one has a bad record except maybe Elizabethtown at 2-6. Everybody else is about 500. How do you actually see this conference playing out? If you aren't the winners of it, who is the winners of this conference?
I don't. I mean, that's why. I mean, I really think there's probably 6 or 7 teams that have a legitimate chance. I think it's going to be hard to get through here unscathed. I think there's going to be a lot of really competitive nights. I think we have a few things going on. I mean, I think Susquehanna returns a lot of guys, very talented group. I did anticipate them being this good. I think they can score. They're obviously well coached. I think Catholic in the end is going to be fine. I think coming off last year and the expectations coming the year are just hard for anybody to handle. I think they're working through some lineup stuff, but they're Catholic. I think they'll be back in the mix. Question. So probably about the time we play them. So, I think the same with Scranton. I mean, Scranton lost Ross Danzig and a couple other key pieces, and to lose that much, I mean, as important as he was to everything they did, there's a transition period I think they have to go through, and league play is a little bit different. So, I don't think we've seen the best from them yet. And then Drew, they're 2-0 and they haven't played with their best player. So they've had, Klinger's been out injured for most of the year, and they're still 2-0. So I think they're extremely talented. And then, the coaching changes in the league. I mean, I think obviously being a Goucher and you being a part of seeing all their games, I think I don't know that talent has been a concern there most of the time, and I think just kind of a new, attitude and focus there, and you can see how dangerous that group is and the kind of job they're doing down there. And then the same thing in Moravian. A lot of energy and a lot of programs in our league that have really strong histories and the real potential to be very good programs. So, it is wide open. And then you add Merchant Marine, who has a whole core back. It's a challenging place to play. They're very, very good in the half court. They have size, also extremely well coached. So, again, we're just hoping to have a good practice today and get as many as we can and try to prepare the best we can for what we know will be a lot of challenges to come.
Got to have you on more often. That's the best breakdown of a conference I've gotten in a while. You talk about the coaching, and it's kind of a wide plethora of options for coaching. You got Frank Marcenic at Susquehanna, certainly been there a long time, very successful. You got Daryl Keckler at Drew, who certainly, kind of like yourself, kind of in the middle there in the sense of experience, but certainly always gets the best out of his squad. Moravian, new coach, a grad in Justin Potts. Scranton, obviously stalwart in Carl Danzig, who also actually was up for, I think, a D1 job, according to the rumors. Merchant Marine, new coach was Steve Hain, obviously last year in the conference for Merchant Marine. Elizabethtown's got Bob Schossler, who's been there for a long time and certainly good. And then you obviously, Goucher, new coach, and Tom Rose. And then you guys. I mean, you have a very interesting conference when it comes to just the coaching side of things.
Yeah, that's what you want. I think the conference has really improved, and that's what I mean. The depth of the conference is, I think, as strong as it's been. And I think obviously where Catholic's been in Scranton the last few years, that's saying a lot. So, that's kind of what you do it for. I think everybody's excited about it. I think, competition brings out the best in everybody, so hopefully it improves all our programs and the quality of the basketball we play.
I totally forgot to mention Steve House, of course, at Catholic. It was one of those where I said I didn't need to click on that name because I would remember it, and clearly I didn't. But Steve, obviously, has been there a long time. Catholic. Let's pivot to your team a little bit here. You got 4 seniors on this squad. 3 of them, as you've told me, have gotten the significant minutes, but it's not them necessarily leading the way in the stat column. Marcus Lee, a sophomore center, 17 points a game, 7.3 rebounds a game, living up to the center title. Brandon, I'm going to hopefully get it right, Martinazzi.
Yeah,
Martinazzi, 11. I'm going to have to get it right at some point when he come visit the Sports and Rec Center. 11.5 points a game. He's also hauling down 3 rebounds a game. Those are the double-figure guys. Kyle Kohler just outside that column, 10 points a game. He's the senior, the first one we hit, 3.6 rebounds a game. All 3 of those guys, by the way, also don't mind handing out the assists, getting the steals, et cetera, et cetera. You got a bunch of other guys who are certainly contributing as well. Another senior, Nate Ogle, at 7 points a game, 3.3 rebounds. Feels like you've got some good presence inside, that 17 points a game from Lee, but at the same time, outside of that, very balanced.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of ways as Marcus goes, we go. I mean, we try to play for him as much as we can. But outside of that, we are very balanced. I think that's what has allowed us to get off to a good start. I think it's kind of by committee. We have a lot of guys that do a lot of things well, and they complement each other well. And, this is a group that played together last year for the most part. Brandon Martinazzi is a freshman. He's kind of a new addition to the rotation. And, we had to struggle through some things last year. We had lost 7 seniors the previous year that had won the most games in the history of our program. So, whether 12 and 13 is not where you want to be, that for our program and where we've been, that was actually a little bit ahead of where I thought we might be that year. So to have these guys back, to have that kind of continuity has really helped. I think guys really kind of know what their roles are and what they can do and what they can't do. And like I said, I think they're hungry. They really want to be good, and they're willing to put the work in.
Obviously, you've been at Juniata a long time. You're closing in on win number 300, if my math is close. I'm correct.
200, I think.
200, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm adding 100, Coach, just for good measure. You can get those. But, yeah, closing in on 200, I should say. There it is, right there on my notes. In your 16th season, what's it like to close in on a number like that, especially where you've been in a program that's had a lot of ups and downs?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's more about, the guys I've had a chance to coach for the last 15 years and what they've done. When we got here, we hadn't had a winning season in over 25 years.
Yeah.
Prior to 2001, there's only 11 winning seasons in the history of our school. So I think to accomplish what we have and to kind of have, to build a level of consistency for our program and our environment, I think we're very proud of, and hopefully we can continue to keep taking steps. And, hopefully this group, we get the most out of the guys we have, and at the end of the year we can all look at each other and realize that we did everything we could, and we became the best program and team we could be for the year, and keep moving from there.
Your brother, of course, coaches at McDaniel. You'll at least hit 200 before him. That's at least something you can mention at Christmas time.
Well, yeah, I've got a few years of head start as a head coach on him, but and we both try to play some defense, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But other than that, he's doing a great job, and unless they play us, I'm always rooting for those guys. So.
I was going to say, how do you two get into coaching? I mean, there's a lot of ways brothers get into coaching. In the NFL, you talk about the Harbaughs and you talk about the Ryans. There's certainly some other brothers in the basketball world that have certainly. But how do you guys get into it? Obviously, you graduated back in the mid '90s. Was it Penn State Barron? I know I got that confused with you went from Allegheny.
I coached there for a little bit.
Right, you're at Barron for coaching, yeah. But how do you guys get into coaching together? Is that something that both of you kind of, after you played, kind of said, hey, we'd love to both do it? Or is it that you went into it and then your brother was like, yeah, I'll do it too? Or was it completely on its own?
We grew up in State College, so
yeah.
And I was a ball boy for Penn State, and so was my brother, and so we grew up Saturday mornings going to Penn State practices and watching practices. Our dad was a walk-on there for a couple years, and so it's kind of been in our blood. And I kind of always knew since I was 4 or 5 that I didn't figure the NBA was an option. So I kind of thought that I wanted to be a coach. went to college with the idea of maybe going to law school, but then really knew shortly that that's what I was going to do. I think my brother came to the idea of coaching a little bit later. He got out of college and was living in State College and started coaching junior high basketball for a year or two, and then turned that into college coaching opportunities. First one was at Bethany. And, but it's been neat. It's been cool to go through it together. He started my senior year in college. He started at Bethany. So we're a year different. He started a year before I did, but, to go through it at different levels and to have somebody that's going through the same thing has been great. It's just my brother and I. We don't have any other brothers or sisters, so probably all the credit goes to our parents for raising two coaches and putting up with two coaches.
Yeah.
So
putting up for is probably the better one there.
Yeah, it's been special. It's neat, and there's somebody that you can get advice from, and somebody can tell you to suck it up, and everybody else goes through it, and at least some perspective, and somebody that you can trust.
What is it about Division III, though? You talk about going to Penn State practices. You certainly got, your dad was D1. You experienced, granted walk-on, but you experienced the D1 life. I know you played Division III, but usually a guy who has at least some of that D1 experience, at least in their blood in some way, eventually wants to move on to D1. Now you're an athletic director at Juniata. It doesn't look like you're going anywhere but staying in Division III. Why?
Part of it's opportunity, but part of it is just, the chance to run your own program. And, I just really enjoy coaching the kind of kids that we get at a place like Juniata. I don't mind kind of the underdog tag and some of the kids we get. And I like the balance and the focus academically, and just breaks along the way. There were certain times when that may or may not have been an option, but it just wasn't the right time. And, I just would rather run my own program. I was fortunate enough to be a head coach since I was 27. So, you don't get those opportunities at the higher levels. And my brother was at Colgate for about 10 years. To really break in and become a head coach, the odds are stacked against you. And for me, it's the game. I like coaching the game more than the rest of the stuff. And I think at this level you get to do that. The creative side gets to come out when you get to plan your own practices or come up with your own system and be a part of that. So I've always really enjoyed that. And I'm at a place where I think I've been treated very well. It's a place you can be proud to say you're a part of it. And, certainly the academics and the experience you have with the student-athletes here is, I think, second to none.
Your brother Kevin and you have told me before that you guys will scrimmage, but you'll never play each other in a regular season game. And I'm going to ask for the umpteenth time, why not? It would be so much fun.
Well, we got in a fight with each other at halftime of a scrimmage, so I don't think the family could handle a game.
I'm telling you, it would be awesome to see Juniata, McDaniel taking on each other in a regular season game. Curley v. Curley. I don't care if there's a fight in the middle of a scrimmage. Come on.
Well, no one would want to see it anyway because it would be like 2-2 at halftime, and both of us would be upset. But
yeah, you both preach defense and then get angry at your offense.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I know how that is. I see them do it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think both of us, a little bit where we are. I think we know kind of where we stand in our leagues and how we have to approach things, and and we also just believe in it. I mean, I think there's a lot that can be learned from playing defense that maybe can't be learned from places that are maybe more about offense that translate beyond just basketball. And I think we just want to know that our kids are tough and play together, and I think that shows up on the defensive end.
I certainly can agree with that, but I will say I'm going to have to somehow do this behind the scenes. I'm going to have to either get you two at a tournament without realizing it and then pay someone to match you up. I don't know. I got to pull this off. I realize you two being brothers, you're going to talk it over anyway, so it's probably never going to happen.
Well, it'll be the NCAA tournament.
There we go. Oh, you two make the NCAA tournament. I am calling the committee. That's what I'm doing.
That's fine with us.
Yeah, in that case, you don't mind at all. I don't. No. I can imagine that one for sure. Hey, well, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Always love chatting with you. Looking forward to seeing you when you come traipsing through Goucher, which I said before the air was January 5th, but that's when they come to your place. I won't see you until the end of February. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh no, end of January, 27th. So looking forward to seeing you there. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to give me, or give the viewers, I should say, before we let you go?
No, I just appreciate you having us on, and appreciate all the work you do for Division III basketball.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Good luck the rest of the way, obviously this big weekend, and we'll look forward to watching how you do in conference play.
Thank you.
All right, Greg Curley joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate him taking the time. Again, team off to a tremendous 7-0 start, 2-0 in landmark play. Out of conference games, one of them's an out-of-division game, I think. Actually, it's technically not. Penn State, York, then it's either Carnegie Mellon or Randolph, and then Pitt, Bradford to finish off, to take a break, and they'll get back into conference action with Drew on the 2nd of January. Due to the lopsidedness of the conference right now, they will have a game against Eastern out of conference just to keep things rolling, and then back into conference as well. When we come back, we'll continue with the Mid-Atlantic theme, believe it or not. We'll switch gears, talk women's basketball. Team you probably didn't realize off to a pretty good start. Ursinus on top of the Centennial Conference in women's basketball at 4-0. Talk to them coming up here on Hoopsville. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
I'm a current Division III student athlete, and I remember how intimidating the first year of college can be.
So if you're a first-year student athlete and nervous about coming out as LGBTQ, I pledge to stand by your side as your ally.
If you can play Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I believe student athletes can help break down the barriers of exclusion.
I pledge to support and encourage my teammates
to support my campus's LGBTQ student group
by volunteering and participating in events.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I believe that everyone should be educated on LGBTQ issues.
I pledge to work with my athletic department and my campus to foster dialogue and create a community of support, respect, and pride.
If you can play in Division III.
We are Division III student athletes, and you can be too. If you can play in Division III.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you've got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. We talked all show that we're going to have a bit of a westward trend with this show. This segment's going to be slightly different. One, because we're staying in region, which is pretty rare with us. As you know, if you're a longtime friend of the show, you'll know that we tend to stick with one region only with a regional reporter. We don't tend to go with double coaches, but we are in this case. And we're slightly going east first before back to our westward trend. Actually, it's all a lie anyway. It just feels like we're going west. Staying in the Mid-Atlantic region, we're talking Juniata basketball last segment. Now we're talking Ursinus women's basketball in the other. Now, you may be a little surprised we're talking Ursinus women's basketball. Started the season 0-3, but it's their last 4 wins that have gotten our attention because they're all conference wins in a conference they're not supposed to be in the battle with, and one of the wins is over a team who's supposed to be on top and is struggling. So what is going on? We figured the only way to find that out is to go talk to their head coach. And so joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is Margaret White, head coach at Ursinus for women's basketball. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time. First and foremost, that 0-3 start. We'll get to the 4-0 stretch right now, but that 3-0 start, probably not exactly how you drew it up.
Not quite. I don't think any first-year head coach hopes that they go out 0-3 to start. But we learned a lot. You know, we played some tough teams in our opening tournament, and then our first home game was against a really tough Albright team. And for a group that I think was still trying to figure out what our expectations were as a new coaching staff, trying to figure out how we were really going to come and play together, we learned a lot. So I think in hindsight, it was actually a really good thing to have that kind of a start.
Yeah, we'll talk about being a first-year head coach in a bit, but that is certainly the wrinkle, as it were. Listen, it's not like those 3 losses were bad either, in the sense of who you were playing. You lost to a Gwinnett Mercy squad who's out to a 7-1 start. Their only loss to DeSales. You lost to a Ly Cummings squad who's 5-3 to start the season. That was their second game of the year. And you lost to Albright, who's off to an 8-0 start to the season. So it's not like you want to necessarily hang your head. You played 3 very good squads in the in the Mid-Atlantic and Atlantic regions.
Right, and that's what we talked a lot about, after each of those games in the locker room and when we came back to campus and regrouped. That's what we talked about, and I think that's what was impressive about our team is that they didn't hang their heads at all. They actually came back ready to go and excited for the start of conference play.
Of course, you got into conference play, and you had a battle but beat by Swarthmore by 11. Swarthmore kind of resurging in the conference. They're 3-4 overall, 2-2 in the conference. Beat F&M. F&M certainly struggling, 1-8 overall, 1-4 in conference play. Then you got a Dickinson squad, 4-4 overall, 1-3 in play. And then you nipped Hopkins. Probably helpful the game was at home. Got them by 1. Of course, Hopkins is off to a 2-5 start, 1-2 in conference. This is a team that's supposed to be battling McDaniel for the top of this conference.
Right. They gave us everything we could handle and then some. We knew we had to be really prepared and play really tough defense. That was really our main goal, was to really be aware of. They have so many weapons on offense and they're so well coached, so we needed to bring our best defensive game, and we did that for most of the game. So we were really happy with that.
50-49, I went and checked the box score. My first moment of having a double take, I saw 4 periods. I'm like, wow, that went double overtime. No, 4 quarters. I'm like, it's a really low-scoring affair for a double overtime game. But still, 50-49, a big win. By the way, we should mention, we're talking to you. You're playing right now. This is a pre-taped interview. They're taking on Cabrini. I meant to mention at the beginning of the segment. But still, 50-49 win over Hopkins is... Listen, that's a big win for you guys, and obviously you're playing well. But is Hopkins also off to as bad a start as that seems like it is from your vantage point?
I don't think that's really fair for me to say. Like I said, they are so well coached. They have so many weapons. They played quite a handful of. They have a lot of freshmen this year, and they got some minutes. So I'll tell you, they were tough to beat the first time around, and I know they're going to be even tougher to beat the second time. So I won't be surprised. This conference has so many power players. I won't be surprised if they regroup.
Yeah, Nancy's already circled January 16th on her schedule. You guys at their place. I would admit you're in for a battle with them. I suspect Nancy's going to be exacting some revenge in conference in the second half. But back to your team again. 4 seniors on this squad. You're led by 3 of them. Jessica Parada, 17.7 points a game, hauling down 8.3 rebounds a game. Obviously, that's your big presence inside. Alyssa Polomini, 13.7 points a game. She's also hauling in 6 rebounds a game. Caroline Shimrock, 7.4 points a game. Of course, Shimrock is just kind of a good shooting presence for you. I should mention Polini, by the way, also handing out 5 assists. So there's your trio of seniors out of the 4 that you have. They're clearly leading the way in the stat sheet, and I have a feeling they're kind of leading the way on the team as well.
Yeah, that really has been the case. We have 4 great seniors, and Alana Roadcloud, who really does a lot on the defensive end for us and rebounding wise. They've really put the team on their back. When we met, actually during my interview process, we talked about how this group had yet to experience playing in the Centennial Conference playoff. Mm-hmm. And so that's been something that we've openly talked about, that we've kind of embraced, that's really something that they deserve to experience and that this group really wants to do for them.
Yeah, kind of one of those, hey, coach, no pressure, but.
Exactly.
Yeah, we want to experience the playoffs. Of course, top 4. I'm sorry, technically, top 5?
Top 5, and then there's that play-in game on a Wednesday.
Right. Yeah. So you get the play-in game, and then it's all 4 on a Friday, Saturday scenario at one location. I should have mentioned Road Cloud. She may not get a ton of points at 4.5, but she's hauling in the most rebounds at 9.5 a game. You talk about that. Certainly that's on the defensive end. 6.5 of those 9.5 are on the defensive end. So certainly a big presence inside defensively. You are a first-year coach. We'll talk about your background in a bit. But what is the process? You take over for a long-time coach, so it's kind of, especially with these seniors, learning a new system, learning a new person, learning a lot of new things in their final year. That's got to be tough on them, but it's also got to be a little bit challenging for yourself.
Yeah, I think definitely, when we started out, we had a lot of conversations about, needing to get to know each other as individuals and as a larger group. And it was fun. You know, the nice thing about basketball is that we don't start until October, so you have a little bit of time on campus to really do some of that stuff. And I think it was helpful. And I think ever since we've gotten on the floor, every day we just learn more and more. And I think we've, as a coaching staff, have figured out where we can challenge them and push them a little bit outside their comfort zone, but in a way that they still gain confidence out of it. And every day we're kind of reevaluating how we need to do that and learning more about people individually in terms of what we see. But it's been really fun. This group has really embraced it. They've embraced, you know, me as a head coach and my assistant coach also, and it's been really fun. And I couldn't ask to be at a better place with better administration, campus support, our fellow coaches down the hallway. It's just been, I've been really lucky to have my first shot here.
Jim Buckley was the head coach prior, announced his retirement in late March. If I know the timing of things, and I'm kind of gauging some other, you know, coaching changes in the region and how coaches were hired, I think you got hired probably, what, May-ish? Late April?
Early June.
It was early June.
Yes.
Okay, so it was later than I thought. But still, at that point, students are off the campus. You don't have a chance to meet with them yet. Your first chance to really meet with them, unless they live in the area or decide to travel back to meet you, except obviously you met them during the interview process. But, I mean, truly meet them as a coach probably came when they got back on campus. So a little bit of a truncated kind of meet and greet and let's get going type scenario.
Yeah, there's really not much lag time, and then before you know it, October rolls around and you've got basketballs in your hands. So it was kind of going in fast forward, but we tried to do some stuff from a distance over the summer, and a lot when we came back on campus, and just spending quality time getting to know people as much as we could. So that was our main focus. And then, like I said, once we started the basketball part, that's kind of the commonality, and I think that was where they became really comfortable, is when you're just talking basketball now. So that kind of helped us actually then kind of get into fast forward a little bit.
Of course, Centennial has a truncated preseason, not as truncated as the NESCAC, but shorter than everybody else's full month of prep. So you had to deal with that. But that's not unfamiliar for you. You are a Gettysburg grad. You played in this conference. You were a team captain for that Gettysburg unit, graduating back in 2009. You know how this works.
Yeah, yep. I have some great memories of playing in the conference, and that whole 1 week delay on the start, it brought me right back to some good conditioning days. So it's all familiar territory.
I mean, I have my opinions that maybe the 1 month for everybody else has gotten a little bit long, but do you still feel like you're handicapped, or is your timing with the Centennial to the point where it's the right mix of, granted this is your first year, so I don't know how much you can gauge this, but the right mix of practice without wearing the team out before that first game?
Yeah, I would say, I think as a coach there's always, well, at least I can't say always, but this year I experienced that I felt like there was still so much more from a coaching perspective that we wanted to teach. But when I really think about it from a player's perspective, I think it is a good mix, because you're starting to play people, who aren't just your teammates at a time when you're kind of ready to do that. So I think from a player's perspective, it's nice. Probably from a coach's perspective, you always wish you had more days to put in more stuff.
As a former soccer player, I think after, even a week of practice, but 10 days especially, we were dying to play somebody else. I can't imagine going 3 weeks in basketball, though sometimes there's a scrimmage in there, but that's a long period of time. Now, certainly your experience with the conference helps. But you kind of stepped away from the conference with your coaching experience. You went to Elmira, you went to Vassar, and you went to Case Western Reserve, where you're an assistant for all three of those tours of duty, and at least for 2 years, I think, with all of them. What did you get? I mean, those are three very different programs. Elmira, Vassar, Case Western Reserve. Some similarities, especially with Vassar and Case Western, to what Gettysburg and the Centennial is. But still, all three of them very different. What did you gather from those three stops that you think you're relying on, or you hope you're going to be able to lean on here?
Yeah, I was really fortunate to be in positions where I worked for some tremendous head coaches. Not only learning X's and O's pieces, but just how to manage a team and all the behind the scenes and orchestrating people management, all the things that go into it. So I was really lucky that I also worked for people that pushed me outside of my comfort zone as a coach, and I think really, especially towards the tail end, really pushed me to start thinking like a head coach before I became one. So I feel like that preparation and working at high academic institutions with really competitive basketball programs and super competitive conferences really prepared me and, really made me ready to come back to the Centennial Conference here.
When you were there in 2009, how competitive was the Centennial?
It's changed a little bit. From my recollection of playing days, there wasn't as much parity as there is now. And I think that's one thing I've seen from going from a player to a coach is now everyone can win on every single night. And that existed then, but I would say it's even more amplified in recent years. And that's really the exciting part.
I just looked it up. That was back when Muhlenberg's domination. Now, your sophomore year, McDaniel and Dickinson, Muhlenberg and Ursinus all had 19 or plus win seasons. You guys were 15 and 11. The next year is Muhlenberg and F&M, and then kind of everybody else. You guys were 18 and 10. The following year, Muhlenberg was just hands and shoulders above everybody, 26 and 4. And the nearest closest team was McDaniel at 15 and 12, and you guys at 14 and 11. You all were 7 games back in the regular
Thanks
season.
for the memories, Dave.
Yeah, no problem. I'm helping everybody else. Muhlenberg was 18 and 0. Gettysburg, McDaniel, Dickinson, F&M, and Hopkins all tied at 11 and 7. Swarthmore somehow at 11 and 8. I think that's probably a typo on our system at D3 Hoops. So yeah, you're in a different way. The conference this year, from one who knows it, being in the area, feels strangely open. McDaniel's certainly the favorite, but I wouldn't say they're a runaway favorite. Hopkins is off to a weird start, as we've talked about. Muhlenberg's off to a tremendously good start, but who knows how that translates in conference. Swarthmore's reappearing. Gettysburg, under a new coach, is reappearing. Dickinson's in the conversation. How's your feel of the conference?
Yeah, that's the exciting piece. Is I think you see people in the conference playing really competitive out-of-conference schedules to get ready, and you know that on any given night anybody can win. So it makes there's a sense of urgency to every game, and I think that just helps every team. And then no matter who ends up advancing to postseason play, they're ready, and they're going to be a great representative of the conference when it goes to the NCAA tournament also. So I think it's all really good stuff. Even though it makes it difficult trying to sneak into the playoffs, it really makes the conference that much better.
Let's pivot back to your team a little bit here. 8 and 17 last year. You're already halfway to that win total. Is there a little bit of a buzz in the locker room? Do the team realize that maybe they can pull off something cool this year?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, there's a lot of positivity. We have fun every day in practice. I think at the same time, they're doing a great job of balancing the focus with the excitement piece. And so, as coaches, we talk, we want to make sure that we're still pushing them and challenging them and, letting them know that it's good to celebrate, each victory, but at the same time, at some point that becomes in the past and you've got to focus on the next one. And I think our team is really embracing that right now. Which is really nice to see.
As you mentioned, playing Cabrini. We'll have a score update later in the show. You then on Saturday will take on Lancaster Bible in out-of-conference action, and then you'll take on DeSales in non-conference action. But the difference between those two games is about 3 weeks. Lancaster is off to about a 3-1 start here. DeSales off to a 4-3 start. You got that 3 weeks coming up. Nothing. I assume you didn't have much control of this schedule. I have a feeling a lot of this was kind of pre-booked before you took over.
Exactly.
You do have this 3 weeks break coming up. How are you preparing for it with your team?
Yeah, it's something that we've started talking about to make sure that we have great accountability and that, we're going home and definitely getting our rest, which we need over winter break, but then making sure that we're coming back and we've got really productive practices. And, like you said, we jump right into playing DeSales on the 4th. So, we're approaching it as, one game at a time and that we're coming back to really work hard and spend some good quality time together. I think winter break is a nice time in basketball season where you can really come together as a group. Mm-hmm. So we're going to make sure we're doing a lot of things like that to make sure that we're the best group we can be through January and February.
Curiosity, before we let you go. We talk about, the previous head coach and now you take over, you come in with a different mentality. What is, without giving me X's and O's because coaches might want to steal the ideas, but what is your mentality for the team? Is this an up-tempo type of offense? Is this a half-court? Are you a zone type of defender? Are you man-to-man? Are you a mixture of everything? Where do you get your inspiration, at least for this season?
we talk a lot about wanting to be the most prepared team on the floor and the hardest working team on the floor. And if you can control those two things, then we're going to be in a position to win every game. So that's what we talk about every day. That's what we talk about on game days, and we kind of let the chips fall where they may. But we're definitely working to be really prepared and really, really hardworking all year long. So that's the goal.
Of course, again, playing days plus your 3-year tours of duty as an assistant coach. You played under probably four very different programs, 4 different mentalities, 4 different offensive mentalities, 4 different defensive mentalities. I'm sure you can bring a lot to the table. Is there anything that not that you learned you didn't like, let me rephrase that. Is there anything that you can take from that you can use, that you are using? Or is it, with all of that, you even kind of start anew?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of everywhere I've been. Like I said, I've worked with some really tremendous coaches, and every once in a while I hear them all their voices come into my head at different times. So I got to give them all credit. I really value what I learned at each spot, and even the former players I worked with. You check in with them and hear from them a little bit, and it's nice. It's nice to be able to take pieces of what you've done with other people and see if you can make it work, while at the same time making sure you know your personnel and what's going to work best for them. So it's definitely a mix. Every day it's kind of something new, and I'm still learning as I'm going. But I've got the support of a lot of people behind us, which is nice.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about the team. Congratulations on the coaching job, and obviously congratulations on starting 4-0 in the Centennial. For a 4-3 record, we'll see how you do the rest of the night, as obviously this is pre-taped. You're playing Cabrini as we speak. As always, Coach, on this show, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Sure. I just, I from a former player perspective and now a first-time head coach, I really appreciate what you guys do to promote our game, on the Division III level and the student-athlete experience, and, especially on the women's side of things. I think it's really valuable how much you all promote our game there. So I know all coaches and student-athletes really appreciate what you do.
Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. Just dawned on me. I'm now been doing this long enough that coaches or players could be turning into coaches. That's just not fair. And I don't feel like I've been doing it that long. But nonetheless, thanks so much. Good luck the rest of the way. Certainly looking forward to seeing you. I may even run into you when you're down in the Baltimore area, depending on schedules. And look forward to seeing what you do this year, but beyond that as well.
Great. Thanks a lot. I
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Margaret White joining us from Ursinus. We appreciate her taking the time to do that. When we come back, I lied at the beginning talking about this westward trend. We really actually kind of start in the middle, go east, and then go back west. Anyway, speaking of that, we will stick with women's basketball, and we will head west. We'll head all the way out to Wisconsin, talk about a team that maybe no one's talking about in the WIAC, and maybe they should be. The attention's on Oshkosh, the attention's on Whitewater. But have you looked at River Falls lately? Cindy Holbrook will join us. The team is off to an undefeated start. We'll talk about that coming up on Hoopsville. Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. Of course, you can always interact with us on Twitter, Facebook, via email. It's always scrolling at the bottom of your screen, so check it out. Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Heck, there might be an Instagram account sometime in the future. We've certainly debated about it, et cetera, et cetera. But lots of ways to interact with us, whether we're on the air or off. We certainly hope you'll take advantage of those. Obviously, lots to talk about. Still a few more guests here tonight, and then we'll move on and wrap up the show as well on our final Thursday show before the holiday break, at least for Thursday shows. Whole theme tonight has been, have you noticed us? You know, the teams that have come out of the gate certainly playing well, have some maybe significant wins or something that certainly drew my attention to them. A lot of teams can come out of the gate sometimes against subpar opponents and be undefeated and then take on their first tough opponent and nowhere to be found. Well, not necessarily the case with all these opponents. Now, certainly not all undefeated, but certainly, as you've noticed as we've talked to them so far, getting attention or maybe not getting enough attention. And so with the extra shows in the beginning of the season, we get to talk to different coaches. One of those that caught my attention out of the WIAC was River Falls. Women's basketball off to a 7-0 start and just got their first ever win against St. Olaf. They've played them 5 times and now have a win, beating them by 12 earlier this week. So that kind of seemed to me like a no-brainer, at least in theory. So let's go to the Hoopsville hotline and bring in the women's coach from Wisconsin River Falls, Cindy Holbrook. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thanks a lot, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining me. I certainly appreciate it. Yeah, talk about a great start. 7-0 on the season. You know, some of those schools are certainly haven't had great seasons either, but you've also gotten some big wins. Gustavus Adolphus comes to mind, and that big win over St. Olaf just the other night.
Yeah, we've played some tough teams, especially some of the MIAC teams that we've played. Bethel's got a great team, and we were glad to have them on our home floor. So beating St. Olaf over at their place was a fantastic win for us. And then when we played Simpson and Gustavus down in that Gustavus tournament, I thought those were 2 tough games too. So I like the schedule that we've had so far. Our team's playing pretty well, and obviously we've got another tough one coming up this weekend, but you can't really complain with a 7-0 start.
No, certainly not. And again, Bethel 3-4, Gustavus I think 5-2. Simpson a 9-point win over them at 4-4, as you talked about that tournament at Gustavus. Certainly a great start. And I wouldn't say you're winning easily. Bethel was a 2-point win, but you've got a couple in there that are certainly sizable. I mean, 15 points over Gustavus Adolphus. We talked about the 12 over St. Olaf. It's got to be nice to have a little bit of a comfortable lead late in the game.
It is, especially early in the season. We're making some mistakes right now at the end of those games where we want to be able to close out games and kind of go through that growth process right now as a team. So we're, even when you're up by 12 or 15, it gives you a little leeway to make some mistakes, but we're certainly trying to grow through those and do a better job with that. Our kids are playing well and putting some points on the board right now.
Yeah, I mean, and sizable. I mean, you've been in the 70s almost every game. I think the only one was a 2-point win over Bethel was 61-59. Otherwise, it's been solid 71, 72, or 73-point games, with Gustavus being 76. Did you expect this start from the season?
You know what? We felt like we had a good team. We felt like we had a good team coming into this year. I'm not generally somebody that kind of goes through and figures out what I expect.
Sure.
Looking at our schedule, I think I knew it would be tough to be where we are right now, but you know what? We knew we had a good team. Adding Bryn to our team really has made a difference for us. We added her to some other good players, which you add a point guard that can put some points on the board and get the ball where it needs to go, and that's a game changer for us.
This is a junior-dominated team, though you do have one senior on the squad, but a number of juniors. So certainly, but looking at a roster like that, looking at a season like this, you kind of say, well, next year is certainly boding well. And obviously we're not looking to next year. But this is a nice start for this program with where your talent is located class-wise.
Yeah, you know what? We needed to do this. We didn't have the season that we wanted to have last year. I thought we struggled. We didn't make a lot of good decisions. Our immaturity really shined through when we were heavy sophomores. Our maturity is shining through a little bit more. Adding Bryn to that mix really made a big difference for us. But our junior class right now is playing really, really well. Their maturity, their decision-making, as juniors is just so much different than having a heavy group of sophomores. So
sure.
We're excited about our group. They have a lot to learn, and we're kind of going through some of those growing pains a little bit right now in practice and trying to prepare for some of these games. But, these kids, the kids that are here right now have been getting a lot of minutes since they've been here. Before that group, we graduated the group that played in the NCAA tournament, and we had 5 seniors that year graduated really almost all of our scoring. And so these kids were kind of the replacements behind those guys, and now we're really seeing some of the dividends from that group.
Well, the 7 wins, we'll talk about the team specifically in a bit, but the team, 7 wins, that's one more already than 2 seasons ago. And you're 2 wins below what you were already last year. So 9-16 last year, 6-19 the year before. You're already at 7-0. So in some cases, you're already playing with house money to the fact that you're building past, it looks like, the last couple of years. Of course, not that far removed from that 21-7 campaign back in 2011 and 12. I'm sure that would be like where you'd like to get back to.
Yeah, of course, that kind of set the bar for where we want to be as a basketball program. That was a team that we had that was really senior dominated, had some really dynamite players that could carry you when you hit those tough patches during the game. You graduate all those kids, and when you graduate 5 at a time, I think having a class of 5 that are all playing and are all contributing and carrying your team, when you graduate 5 at a time, that's a really big class for a college team. So you come in and you have some building and some development to do behind those guys. And this group that we have right now, with Katie Messman and Rochelle Mayhus, Taylor Cargie, some of those kids, they've been going through those growing pains. They got thrown into the WIAC probably earlier than they were ready. And that's just part of the deal when you come into this conference and you're young.
What's the win over St. Olaf mean? I mean, you previously played them 4 times, came up with losses. This time you come back with a big win. Is that the perfectly timed victory, considering you've got a big opponent with Luther coming up and Augsburg, and you'll take a break and then get back into conference play?
It is. We feel like we have a really tough non-conference schedule here this first stretch, just against some of the MIAC teams and some of the strong MIAC teams. So going over to St. Olaf's place and having 1 week left of classes, and kids, in college, as you approach finals week, kids get a little distracted, and it's harder to keep them prepared and moving forward. So I was really happy with the way our team came out. So, going over to St. Olaf, they had some great players on that team, and they run some things that were tough for us to match up against. But, we felt like we were prepared for the game, and anytime you get a win against a good team in another conference that's close by, that's in our region that we're going to be compared to as the season goes on, I think that's really huge, not only for us but for our conference. So, I think that was a really big win for us.
Another big game against Luther coming up. They're 7-1 on the season. Certainly a good team and one that to keep an eye on out of the IIAC. How important is that game, and is it more about what you do during the game than necessarily the outcome of the game?
Well, we try to keep it focused on what we do during the game all the time. Obviously our kids and our staff love winning games, but at the end of the day, if you play as good as you can play, that's where the bar has to be set. So we try to focus on what we're doing and how we perform every game, and then let the score follow where it might. And thankfully, so far, it's fallen on our side.
Yeah.
But Luther is a big game. That Luther and Simpson are the only 2 opportunities that we have to separate a little bit from that Iowa conference.
Yeah.
Against some really good teams. Luther is a really tough team. They're so balanced. They play a tough style to play against. They make it hard for you to run your stuff. So it'll be interesting. We haven't played against quite the style that Luther plays, and so it'll be interesting. Thankfully, we go the following week. We play Augsburg, and they play a little bit similar style as Luther does. So some of our preparation stuff will hopefully carry into 2 games for us.
Of course, you'd point out the Luther North, coached by a WIAC player, 2005 grad, Amanda Bailey. So obviously she knows your program well, as much as you know her well. Yeah, you talk about that Augsburg game coming up just about a week later, 6 days. Of course, that one's at home as well. And then I feel horrible for you. Your Christmas break, you're going to have to go to Daytona Beach, play some basketball down in Florida. I feel horrible. Of course, your opponents are Iowa Wesleyan, who will be making a bigger splash in Division III next year, or have really by joining the IAAC, and then Messiah out of conference. So you've got some good tests coming up here. All 4 of those teams are having decent seasons. Messiah's struggling a little bit, but they're capable. So you got some good tests here before conference play.
We do. The conference schedule switching has really been an interesting change for us. And getting these non-conference games in, and then even having, a week between games, these last 2 weeks going into Christmas break, is a little bit different for us. So just that schedule shift has been interesting. I feel like a number of non-conference games that we're having, though, going into our conference play is really going to help us preparation-wise for conference. So
Yeah, obviously. Go ahead.
We're playing good teams in our area, and those teams I think are going to end up doing well in their conferences. And I'm really happy with our non-conference schedule so far.
Well, then you'll get into conference play. 2 less games because Superior is no longer in the conference. They're over in the UMAC. So everything's in the second semester per se, or the second half of what we call the season after the Christmas holiday. Starting in January, you'll start off with 2 road games, Oshkosh and Stout, 5 days apart, then a couple home games, and you'll start rolling through this conference. This conference is going to be interesting. I think everybody certainly thinks Oshkosh is going to win it, but Whitewater is playing well. You never know what Shirley Egner is going to pull out of her hat at Stevens Point.
That's for sure.
And then, of course, you guys are off to a hot start. So that automatically, you guys were picked to finish 5th in this conference. This has already started things in a different direction than many people thought.
Yeah, you know what? Again, I'm not huge on some of the preseason picks and things like that. I think a lot of times with the preseason things, people don't know who you have added to your team, who you lost from your team, what kind of off season your team had, things like that. But to start off 7-0 non-conference games against really good teams, that's exactly what we needed to do. And I think we're playing some teams that are going to be good preparation for our league. Now, nobody we play is going to be Oshkosh. And nobody plays a Stout. Well, probably as close to Stout we're going to play as Luther and Augsburg coming up here, that style of play. So, it's going to be a big awakening when we get into January and start playing against some of the WIAC teams. I keep talking about how tough our non-conference schedule is with our kids, but that you can't understand the WIAC until you get into the WIAC.
Well, in Oshkosh, 7-0 start. River Falls yourselves, 7-0. Whitewater, 6-0. Stevens Point, 4-2. Stout and La Crosse both with solid 3 and 4s. Eau Claire, 2-5. Platteville, 2-6. Certainly near the bottom, but good starts for the conference, and obviously that will get real, as they say, when it comes to January. Of course, those records coming into the night. Let's talk. We danced around your team a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about the team. You talk about Bryn Lelander, 15.4 points a game, 5.5 rebounds a game, also leads the squad, shoots 80% from the free throw line. You don't want her put there. Shoots 33% from outside and 42% from the floor. Is there anything she doesn't do?
Yeah, she doesn't box out. She's driving me crazy.
Nice.
Yeah, she doesn't box out. Now, thankfully, most of the time the point guard on the other team is converting back because we'll run on them a little bit.
Yeah.
That has saved her a few times. But, yeah, she doesn't box out. And so, of course, what do I focus on with her, right? You got to box out. She's doing everything else well. She you know what? She makes such a difference for our team. She gets the ball where it needs to go. She's that kid that when you can feel the game turning and you need a basket, you know she's going to get a basket for you. So to have a point guard that can do that is huge for us. So the last point guard that we had that could do that was Tiffany Gregorich, which graduated in that 2012 group. So she's just been a total program changer for us coming in as a junior. She's mature, and she's learning to play our style a little bit more. So
yeah,
she's going to keep getting better and better as we go.
I was going to say a junior, certainly a nice addition for the team so far in this one. Of course, second on the team, 15 points a game, Taylor Cargie, sophomore, we should point out. Also shoots well from the free throw line, 87%. Shoots incredibly well from the floor at nearly 58%. Also hauls in 5 rebounds a game. So you got a nice kind of back and forth there with Bryn and Taylor.
Yeah, the two of them complement each other so well, and they really like playing together. So we'll run some two-player stuff for them and things like that, and their styles complement each other so well. So that's been huge for us. Bryn makes Taylor better, and Taylor makes Bryn better, and we have a couple of guards that can shoot the basketball with Katie Messman, and especially Katie really, and Bryn opens up the floor for Taylor. So I think that's really the big thing right now is we have kids.
Yeah.
We have different kids that can lead us in scoring every night, and Taylor's one of those kids.
Yeah, Messman, nearly 9 points a game, shooting 38.5% from outside. And then you have Rochelle Mayhews, 8.7. That's your only senior on the squad. That's why I wanted to make sure we point her out. Of course, she's also leading the team at 22 assists in her 7 games so far. It's a nice little group there. Maybe not as understood as everybody thought going into the season, as you kind of pointed out in those preseason polls.
Yeah, you know what? This group, we have different kids that can lead us in scoring every night, which makes such a huge difference. With the video editing and the scouting stuff that we have, the coaches have access to now, it's harder to win with one star player, I think, than it probably used to be. Now you have a star player on your team, and you have that kid so well scouted that you just can take them out of the game. So, but our team right now, I think, with 4 key kids that are coming in and scoring for us, and then other kids that complement them with Kate Tyson and, Hannah Pignato's getting some good minutes for us off the bench, and Allie Clark. So I like our balance right now, and I like our depth right now. And so far in our first 7 games, when one kid's had an off night, another kid's put up points for us. So I think that's really important as the season goes on to have kids that complement each other like that.
How much? Okay, so what were the goals going into the season, and how much have they changed now that you're off to 7-0?
We talk about goal setting and things like that quite a bit. We talk a lot about preparation and being focused on our side of the basketball. So I think our solid team goals are still being set. I'm not sure that our players really understand how good a group they can be. But, you look at our conference this year, and I think Oshkosh obviously separates a little bit, but I think our conference is wide open. So, I think for us as a group, we'd really like to finish in that top 2 in our league. And, so we haven't had to switch anything yet. And to do that, to be in the conversation at the end of the year, you have to win non-conference games, and you have to win some big non-conference games. So right now, for where we want to be, we're sitting right where we want to be, if not a little bit ahead. And we're running some stuff, and our kids are playing and practicing hard, and this group is going to get better and better as the season goes, which is really exciting.
This is your 16th season. I'm kind of curious in those years, and obviously you're a Stout grad, so you certainly know the area very well.
Yep.
What's your proudest moment?
Oh, that's a tough question. What's my proudest moment?
We could start with least proudest moment.
Least proud moments. I think coaches, we all have some of those.
Yeah,
I
know.
That. Sometimes when you just say one more sentence than you should have said.
Yeah.
I have a bad habit of doing that. So I do it, but that's why you have a good assistant coaching staff, I guess.
True.
My proudest moment. God, that's a good question. You know what? I'm probably a little bit funny. I'm not a huge moment person. I'm not a coach that focuses just on winning games, and I'm not. I don't know. It's really different. You know what? I teach a sports psychology class, and so one of the things that I really talk about a lot is performance and how your team plays and how your team grows and how you develop relationships and how you keep kids growing and see kids mature and how cool that is. And the coolest thing for me, I think, is seeing a group come in and being really unsure, and then going through their sophomore and junior year and really gaining confidence as young women and how they navigate the world. And we spend a lot of time on that with our kids. And so to see kids just gain that confidence and be able to navigate the world a little bit more like I got it as young women, that always is the proudest time for me when I see that change or that development in kids. So as far as a moment, most people would say when we played in the NCAA tournament, and that was fantastic. That was that group of kids really maturing. But seeing this group of kids right now that we have, they're turning the corner a little bit, and their maturity is coming along, and it's really fun to see. And I'm curious how we handle. I'm sure we're going to hit some adversity as the season goes. I'm sure that we're going to hit some tough patches. But seeing kids grow up and mature like that, that's the coolest thing to me.
Well, that's a perfect answer to finish us on. I appreciate you taking the time to join us here on the show. Though I do have one more request. We always leave the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Just go Falcons. Watch our team a little bit. We have a really good group. We're playing a fun style, and love it that you guys are following us a little bit. So we appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, good luck the rest of the season. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Cindy Holbrook joining us from Wisconsin River Falls. Again, off to that terrific 7-0 start. They got a good test with Luther coming up 7-1. Coming up on Saturday. Then next Friday, they will take on Augsburg. Both these games at home. Augsburg 5-4 on the season. Take a break for the holidays. Then they head to Daytona Beach for Iowa Wesleyan and Messiah. Then they come back, get about a week off, and then they'll get back into conference play starting off, interestingly enough, with Wisconsin Oshkosh on the road. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears, go back to men's basketball, and we're going to continue the somewhat western trend of this show. We'll talk Northwestern, Minnesota men's basketball. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
I know sports is important, but having the academic part along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself, a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles.
At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The end result in my mind is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for other opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during soccer, but after soccer, that's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. Nearly wrapped up. We've got a lot covered so far tonight, and we got a lot more to cover. Obviously, our final Thursday show, we'll talk about that more when we tag out here in a bit. But if you got questions for us, usual way, follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or use the hashtag Hoopsville. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. We kind of had this westward trend with our interviews. Started kind of very much on the East Coast and have worked our way west. The last interview was in Wisconsin, so naturally we'll move across state lines and head to Minnesota. We're switching genders now, going from women's basketball to men's basketball, talking to a team that we've talked to when they've pulled off a nice upset in the NCAA tournament, but I don't think we've actually ever talked to them in midseason. Now, I could be completely wrong about that, but anything is certainly possible. But nonetheless, let's bring in the Eagles of Northwestern, and their head coach, Tim Grosz, joins us on the Hoopsville hotline. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be with you.
Great start to the season. 7-1 on the season. Your one lone loss to Bethel. Not that that's a bad loss. Undefeated still as we talk at 7-0 on the season. You guys are 7-1 with wins over Gustavus and Hamlin, Marion, Concordia, Moorhead, McAllister, Northland, and a trip to Finlandia, which we can certainly chat about. But how do you feel the season started for you guys?
Yeah, no, it's been a great start for us, like you said. Very happy. A very similar schedule to what we had last year, and we didn't start out as well last year as we did have this year. So yeah, the guys have been playing well. We're shooting the ball well. We're taking care of the basketball extremely well. Also, our defense has been good. Still think we can take that up another level even. And then probably the one thing we're working on the most right now is just rebounding. We haven't rebounded the ball real well to start the season, but good place to be. And like you mentioned, our lone loss was at Bethel. Great game, just a packed gym. We had a couple chances to win it. We were down one, had a good look at three, under 30 seconds, missed it. They came down, made one or two free throws, and we literally had a three at the buzzer. Cody Springer kind of front rim that didn't fall for us, that would have won the game by one. So that was a very exciting, competitive, fun game against what you mentioned, a very good Bethel team at this point too. So,
and you guys started last year 2-9. You ended the season 20-10 in the NCAA tournament. If anybody wants to do the math, that meant 18 straight wins once you started conference play in January against North Central. You guys rolled from there to those 18 straight, including all the way to the Sweet 16, where East Texas Baptist unceremoniously thanked you for your tournament run, and you guys finished at 20-10. So yeah, 2-9 turned around to 7-1 at this point. That's outstanding turnaround.
Yeah, it's been a good stretch for us here, right? I mean, if I do the math there, I guess what's that? 27 of our last, or 29 or whatever that number would be, I guess. But
20,
yeah, it has been.
Yeah, you've won 25 of your last 27.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that math.
Very well.
So I got to work on that. But yeah, it has been a good turnaround. And last year, even we were 2-9. I mean, we were losing some really close games. Playing pretty well, and obviously things clicked for us in conference and continued into the NCAA tournament for us too. And we've just kind of picked up from there. I think that tournament run gave us a lot of confidence, and going into this year. Early on here, we've just been playing with a lot of confidence as a group and experience. We have, 5 of our top 6 guys back from last year who helped us make that run. So, and 2 of those guys are seniors, 3 are juniors. So that's a nice place to be with an experienced veteran group.
Obviously, the conference has grown, and that's going to force you into conference play here in December, something you guys have not done. It's grown because Wisconsin Superior's left the WIAC and joined the UMAC. Logistically, certainly geographically making sense. But now you're going to have to play 2 conference games coming up this weekend. So a little bit of a different twist on how things have normally progressed for you guys.
Yeah, it has been. And actually, we played 1 conference game actually last
Oh,
weekend.
you're right,
Northland. At Northland. Won that on the road. And, yeah, now we have 2 conference home games against Crown and the University of Minnesota Morris this weekend. So, yeah, it is unique. In my 16 years here, we've never played conference games, before January 1st. So this has been unique. I think maybe kind of push the urgency a little bit more preseason, to really get ready for the conference season early on here. So we're good start, got that first win on the road, and hopefully play well this weekend at home.
Obviously the win over Northland, totally missed that, but that came off that loss to Bethel. So that's a nice response for the team. A tough loss, as you said, at the buzzer to Bethel, but then you get into conference play. It's nice to see that didn't kind of stick with them. That's an easy way to let down, especially against a team like Northland that you should beat. It certainly was close. I mean, you only beat them by 5, but at least you got the job done and got back into the winning column, as it were.
Yeah, no, it was. That game was actually a hard-fought game. Northland came out and really got after us right away. I think we were down by 12 or 13 actually early in the first half, and the guys responded well and battled back, and like you said, pulled it out in the end. So, it was a tough. It's a long trip up there for us, and but I was proud of how the guys responded. And obviously with the success we've had, in our conference, we have a pretty big target on our back, and I think with the tournament run last year, that target's even gotten bigger. So, we're gonna get great shots from people, and what I challenge our guys before the game too is, we need to give great shots back too. So we know it's our conference has been very competitive over the years, and we're gonna have a lot of tough games. So we need to be ready, ready to play.
Yeah, obviously 14-0 last season, 11-3 the year before in conference. A large target on your back for sure for going 14-0, and of course. Now 15 straight 15 straight dating back to last year. I haven't looked back at how many consecutive in 2 years. But you now do have Superior in it, so you are going to play 16 games. Is it possible to go undefeated in this conference still, or is this you're going to have to take some of your lumps?
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll take it a game at a time and see what happens. And even last year, I mean, our mantra was kind of to treat every game as a championship type game, and we've kind of kept that same approach. So we're really just trying to, not look back, not look ahead, just kind of focus on the task at hand, which, for us is Crown College tomorrow night. And, we really just talk as a program that, winning's just a byproduct of working hard, of getting better, and putting forth our best efforts. So really those are the things we focus on. Those are the things we talk about. And we'll kind of let the wins and losses take care of themselves.
It is 15 straight. Should mention lost to St. Scholastica in 2014 in the last game of the regular season. So regular season conference play, 15 straight games. You'll play Northland Crown and Minnesota Morris. Then you'll play Stout in non-conference action. Then you take a bit of a break. You're going to take just about 3 weeks off before you'll get back into action in conference play. I ask this about all the coaches because I'm kind of curious. A, no preference to do something during that break, and B, how do you keep the team focused or get them refocused when you get back together?
Right. Great question. With our conference schedule changing, like you said, with Superior coming in, we're actually opening up conference play January 2nd, so very early. as we looked at our schedule, we just felt it was best to take some time off, after that Stagg game, allow our kids to get home to see their families, for a 9-10 day trip back home for Christmas, for the holidays, and then come back. I believe it's the 28th of December. Get a week of practice in before we open up conference play on January 2nd. So I think at this point, I think the rest will be great. We've been going hard since October 15th. The guys are in finals next week, so they're getting pretty taxed between basketball and school. So I think the break is going to come at a great time, and then get refocused and hit conference play hard starting January 2nd.
Thank goodness you guys are right outside Minneapolis. Otherwise, a week in the middle or the end of December back at the campus just for practice would be a little less exciting.
Right.
Quickly before we talk about the team, you did take a trip up to Finlandia. You and I were talking before air. It's been a bit mild up there by your terms and by everybody else's terms. You've had a little bit of spits and spats of snow, but you haven't had anything like you normally have. But a trip to Finlandia this time of year, perfectly timed. It doesn't sound like they've had any snow either.
Yeah, we lucked out. We were joking. We were eating Applebee's our pregame, and we stepped out, and I think it was 51 degrees. Felt like March, it felt like spring break almost. And before the game, one of the officials came up to me and said, at this time last year they had about 3 feet of snow, so it was great. It made for good travel for sure for our bus driver, and nice weather. So I was glad we were fortunate to go up there here early and not sometime later in January or February.
Yeah, absolutely. You lucked out, especially with the Mother Nature being kind. This team's only got 2 seniors on it. That's probably what might be scary about the Eagles. You make such a great run. You bring back, a good chunk of that team and 2 seniors. So you're junior loaded. You've got a number of good players. This team's certainly set for the next few years. Though it's a senior who's leading the way right now. Kyle Ohms, 12.5 points a game. Of course, Michael Carney, 12.5 points as well. Clay Elrod, 12.1 points a game. Will Gisler, 11.9 and 10.3 from Cody Springer. I don't want to forget Porter Morel as well, 8.8 points a game. That's your nucleus, though. That's your 6. That's your starting 5 plus one guy coming off the bench. That seems to be the unit that this team revolves around.
Right. It's a great, and as you say, those numbers. You can see our balance as a team, and that's really been the strength of our program over the years. We're a motion offensive basketball team that really shares the basketball and moves well, moves the ball well, moves our body well, and to have that balance, I think, makes us tough to guard. And we really say, right now Clay's coming off the bench for us, and we really say, Clay, you're a 6th starter. He's obviously not in the starting lineup, but that balance has been tremendous for us. And those 5 guys, were a big integral part of our team last year. And then Clay, Division II transfer for us, has really helped us out this year. Provide that 6-man spark off the bench. Because last year's group, we do have a lot returning, but we did lose 1 starter in Caleb Jansen, and then we did lose 4 other guys, 4 seniors for us that provided our depth off the bench. So we have a good experienced group starting, but our guys coming off the bench, we have quite a bit of inexperience and youth coming off the bench. So that 6 has definitely kind of carried us early in the season, but Peter Marion and Aaron Youngberg and Caleb Hagman coming off the bench have given us some really good minutes too.
You had a few seniors on last year's squad that certainly helped, but not 1 or 2. So it's
we actually did have 4 seniors that would come in and definitely give us good minutes and make big plays, shots or stops for us when needed. So. But they were all those seniors were coming off the bench. So, and then we had our other starter last year, Caleb Jansen, actually was just a junior, but he graduated in 3 years, so he actually graduated early.
Show
and
off.
Did not return. Yeah, exactly. Did not return for his senior year. So we lost him also in that.
But still, you've got that core group that's coming off of what is, by all definitions, a spectacular season. Or at least a spectacular finish to the season. I don't know if they want to say it was anything great in November and December. But if we're talking January on, it was an amazing season. But to have all of that experience basically back for this year and technically for next year, That's an amazing development for you guys. How far can you run with that?
Well, it is a great as a coach. You love having upperclassmen. It's been tremendous, and really, we have a junior varsity team too. We have some very good young players. Our junior varsity's been playing very well, and they're 6-2 on the season too. So right now, just kind of top to bottom, we just have very good depth within our program, and very solid players. Great competition. So the guys are really pushing each other, in practice and making each other better. So, we feel like we have a very competitive program here at Northwestern, and we're always looking to get better. And we know here in the Midwest, the upper Midwest, there's so many good teams and so many good conferences that if you're competitive in this region, this part of the country, you're competitive nationally. And, that's really our goal, is to be very, very competitive in this region, which then, if we're fortunate enough to make the NCAA tournament again, allows us, we feel, to be competitive nationally.
How much can you take from last year still? How much can you tap into, hey, guys, do you remember this, or do you remember that, or the buzz on the campus, is it still there from that incredible run? I mean, beating number 3 St. Thomas and then beating Elmhurst, granted probably a little bit tired Elmhurst in the second round, but take advantage of the matchups when you can, and then getting to the Sweet 16. How much can you take advantage of that now? I'm sure at some point it wears off. Has it worn off, or is that coming?
Well, I think there's still a lot of excitement, great excitement around, what we were able to accomplish last year. And like I said, the confidence standpoint, I think it just gives our guys, a lot of confidence. I mean, obviously St. Thomas in our area, is kind of the gold standard. So to knock them off, it was just huge for our program, for our conference. And then, like I said, Elmhurst did have that triple overtime, against St. Norbert's, but that was a very, very good Elmhurst team too, with a lot of, I think their whole team was juniors. I think they had 10 juniors that played for them. So we felt great about that too, to follow up that St. Thomas win with a very good win against Elmhurst, which gave us confidence. And then kind of a fun thing on our campus too, our volleyball team this year made it to the Sweet 16 of the National Volleyball Tournament too. So that's kind of just kept things, rolling campus-wide too, not just, within our basketball program, but within our whole athletic department. So, it's a fun time, around campus and around our athletic department.
How much, though, is it hard to keep your team then focused? And I mean that on the sense that obviously 2 years ago, a lot of success. Last year, tremendous success with a very, for lack of a better description, young squad. You had seniors, but again, your core is young. You've got them back again this year. At some point, do you worry about almost resting on your laurels, as it were?
Our kids have been really good about kind of knowing who we are, and we know as a program that we need to work extremely hard. We need to execute very well, to be successful and to be competitive in this area. So I don't think it's gone to our head at all. I think it's just we know we're close, but we still know that anybody on our schedule can beat us, if we're not playing well, and maybe even if we are playing well. But we also, I think, have that confidence that we know, we can beat anybody on our schedule too. So we've stayed hungry, and we've always tried to say, hey, this is a new year, this is a new team, this is a new group of guys, So again, that's not look back, that's not look ahead, that's just kind of live in the moment and give championship effort and see what happens. So our guys have done a really, really good job of staying focused in that area.
I noticed you conveniently made sure your graduation year is not on your bio page, but you are a graduate of Northwestern. So what's it mean to coach your alma mater, and on top of that, take them to such lofty levels now?
Well, I love it. I'm a 92 grad of Northwestern. There we go. I'll give that to you. And getting close to that 50 spot, which one of our other head coaches here reminded me the other day, but
nice.
I don't feel it. But I love it. I loved it as a student athlete here. Played basketball here too. I love the mission of our school. The people I work with are tremendous. The kids we get to coach are outstanding. So to be a college basketball coach is a special thing. To be a college basketball coach at your alma mater, to me, is really, really special. And obviously, we've had a lot of success over the years, which has been great. Not just the run last year, but we've won the conference 12 of the last 15 years. We've been to 10 national tournaments. We're going for our 6th straight NCAA tournament. So it's been a pretty special run here, and we hope it continues. And like you said, hopefully we can continue to advance even further.
You were a double major in physical education and Bible, and minored in coaching and health education. Talk about polar opposite worlds. I can understand business and Spanish because, you might be in this in the world or some of the sciences together. But wow, physical education and Bible, you literally are on two different worlds there.
Right. Well, and that's the uniqueness about Northwestern too. Actually, it's a Christian liberal arts university. Actually, all of our students here, they get their liberal arts major, and then they get a secondary major in Bible. So
crazy.
It's both things, and basically, instead of taking a lot of electives, a lot of the elective hours are taken up kind of in biblical worldview education.
That's fascinating. Very fascinating. Curious. You're 6 wins away from 300. Has it dawned on you yet?
A little bit it has. I think SID reminded me of that just actually last night. Ironically, we were talking about that a little bit. So, I guess I've been here a long time. That's part of it. But, there's just so many great players and great coaches that have allowed us to get to that mark. So, again, to me, it's a group accomplishment. I know my name kind of goes behind it, but it really is a group thing. If we get to that point, I'm just worried about getting one more tomorrow night and see what happens after that. But obviously, that's a lot of hard work by a lot of people to get to that number. So that'll be a pretty special thing. Hopefully, when that happens,
sure.
But we'll see. Right, got to go one at a time.
I was going to say, if you keep on winning, it'll be against St. Scholastica at home on January 15th. But no pressure. You do have some leeway. You've got 3 home games following that, so you've got a little bit of leeway to make sure it's at home. And of course, I would be fascinated to see how many wins we would add in if we talked about your playing days. Coach, I appreciate you coming on the show as always, especially in season. We won't talk about the fact that you retrograded back to phone call after a cool Skype interview last time. Don't worry, we won't hold that against you. But as always, and you probably remember, we always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be watching?
Well, first of all, Dave, appreciate the time and getting a chance to talk about our program and the great kids we have here and the great university we have. So, again, just very humbled to be a college basketball coach at the Division III level. And, again, we're just always striving here at Northwestern to be the best we can be and see where it takes us.
Well, congratulations yet again on a great start. And, again, 25 out of the last 27. Big games coming up. We look forward to seeing how it goes from here.
Thanks, Dave.
Tim Grosz from Northwestern. And welcome. Thank you, Coach, for joining us on the show. Appreciate him taking the time. Again, terrific start there. If you've been watching the show, thank you. Watching it live. If not, there have been some excitement going on. One of them being the fact that 2 double overtime games taking place. One featuring an upcoming guest. We hope to be talking to Roanoke's men's basketball coach. They had a double overtime come from behind victory tonight over Shenandoah. The final there, 108-97. It was not an 11-point game. I can tell you that right now. The other being Amherst and Babson. Double overtime. Right now, Amherst leads 196 and are going to the free throw line with pretty much seconds to go here. I think 14 and a half. Lord Jeffs, I think, are on the line. Just made it a 5-point game. Obviously, Babson could pull off the miracle. We'll keep an eye on that one and see what happens. A reminder, this is our last Thursday show of the season, and so that means we have 2 more Sunday shows, though, here to go, so we still have some time. 5 seconds left in that Babson-Amherst game, a 3-pointer on the way, no good, and Amherst's going to hold on to the ball. Clock's, there's going to be a foul with 0.9 of a second for some reason, but Amherst is going to survive their first second true test of the season. Amherst had a lot of easy games to start the season. Westfield State, Johnson State, some others in there. I'm trying to get it. So then they played Brandeis the other day and survived. I think that one might have gone to overtime as well. And now Babson, a double overtime game. They're going to survive it, winning by 6 now, probably 8, barring a shot with 9/10 of a second. That's going to be a miracle here. You look at the rankings expected here. This is where a top 25 voter doesn't necessarily move his rankings just because Babson lost. You'd expected Babson to lose if you ranked them behind Amherst. I did, and so I don't have any reason to move them. Nonetheless, Amherst got a scare here, and I think I moved them down from 4 to 6 this week, mainly because I had to move people up. I had to move St. Thomas down and moved Ohio Wesleyan up. Amherst ended up by default moving down as well. By the way, final there 103-96. So that's how it happens sometimes. And I don't have any reason here to have Babson change either, unless something happens this weekend. Tough loss for Babson, certainly. I won't diminish that fact in any way, shape, or form, but still, nonetheless, a pretty good effort for Amherst, who hasn't really been tested this season. Let's look at some other scores quickly. I'm going to have to refresh, so that's going to take a bit of time. Let's see, got obviously a lot of games coming up this weekend. Then we kind of hit this lull where teams are in finals. We're actually kind of in that this week too. Finals and then getting ready to go to break and stuff like that. So the next few weeks kind of hits and misses with a lot of this. We'll see what happens with games, but obviously we will be on the air nonetheless. By the way, I forgot, go back to the Maroons. The reason we're going to have Paige Moyer on the show. They lost the opening game of the season and have won 7 straight. Technically 8 straight. They won an exhibition against a D1 in the middle of that. But in those in the season, they have 6 of those 8 games have scored more than 100 points. I texted Paige and said, "Are you running the system?" His answer was technically no, but we'll find out Sunday if we can get him on the show what he is running. But Roanoke off to a tremendously good start this season, and we want to talk to him about it. So that's hopefully going to be coming up on Sunday. We have some other guest ideas as well for Sunday. Hopefully we can get them all lined up for you. And we'll, of course, follow us on Twitter to find out who's on our show. At D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We have some other ideas of guests to be on that show. We refreshed the score, so let's take a look quickly. We mentioned the Amherst win. East Texas Baptist played tonight. That's underway. Don't have a score. I'm looking to see if there's anything else that jumps out of me. Eastern Connecticut is actually trailing Connecticut State right now. Eastern Connecticut actually got a good win the other day, but they're trailing Connecticut College right now, 65-60 with 5 minutes left. Those of you listening to the podcast, that doesn't matter, does it? Sage, who's off to a tremendously good start in the Atlantic region in the Skyline Conference, is beating Purchase right now, but that's early in the second half. St. Joseph's of Brooklyn and Farmingdale State went overtime tonight, 105-101, Farmingdale State, so another OT game. By the way, Pine Manor, only in their, second season, I believe, as a men's program, beat Mass Boston tonight. They were 10-10 last year, and they're 7-3 this season. Pine Manor certainly coming out of the gates with a nice run, as it were. Let's see here. Any other scores that jump out at me? Wesleyan had an easy night over Curry. We mentioned the Roanoke double OT game. Hamilton beat Hobart. That's an interesting score. Hobart actually started the season kind of playing some pretty nice basketball, and have stumbled as of late. Johnson and Wales with a huge win over Riviere. MIT barely got past Rhode Island College. There's 2 teams that are kind of struggling just a little bit this season due to many, many factors. Bates got a win. This is all in men's basketball. Again, Hobart started the season 3-0 and have lost 4 of their last 5. Lost to Buffalo State, Roberts Wesleyan, who's obviously D2. They beat Nazareth, then lost to Brockport State, and lost again tonight to Hamilton. So Hobart's things struggling a little bit for Coach Tim Sweeney. Excuse me. Cough button not close enough for me. Johnson and Wales 7-1. They lost their opening game against Linfield when they were out at Lewis and Clark, and then since then have rolled through most of their opponents. They've had some struggles as well. They got a game coming against Elms. Their game against Albertus Magnus isn't until January, so we're going to have to wait just a little bit. On the women's side, quickly before we let you go, Tufts got back into the win column, beating Wheaton of Mass 58-45. Other scores, looking to see if any teams jump out at me here quickly. And they pretty much don't. Nothing. Ursinus, we had their head coach on earlier. They played Cabrini tonight. Cabrini, unfortunately, beat Ursinus 62-54, so Ursinus falls back to 4-4. But more importantly, they are 4-0 in the Centennial Conference. That's what we really want to watch. But Cabrini, who struggled to start this season as well, at least has a win in that game. And, yeah, nothing else really jumping out at me besides that. Cabrini, who had started the season 0-4, has now run 4 in a row. They lost to Eastern, Stockton, Moravian, and Scranton, and beat Centennial, New Jersey, Rosemont, Delaware Valley, and Ursinus. So Cabrini back into their winning ways at 4-4. That's going to do it for us. I appreciate you all tuning in, especially if it's on the archive, or if it was live, especially if it was live. If you have any questions or you have guest ideas or whatever, we have 2 Sunday shows left this season, so make sure you join us and tune in and have some fun with it. Those Sunday shows coming up on the 13th and 20th of December. Always follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville, email us Hoopsville, D3Hoops.com, join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. That's going to wrap it up for us. I want to thank our guests tonight. They start with Mike Moran from John Carroll, men's basketball. Appreciate him taking the time. Greg Curley from Juniata men's basketball. Ursinus' Margaret White from their women's program. Women's basketball coach Cindy Holbrook at Wisconsin River Falls. And, of course, Northwestern's Tim Grosz as well. Want to thank their sports information directors as well for their assistance in getting them on the show and any of the materials that we needed as well. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back on Sunday once again with Hoopsville. The last Thursday, once again, last Thursday show until January. We'll have 4 weeks of no Thursdays, but we'll be on for 2 more Sundays before taking our holiday break, and we hope you will join us then. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to all those who participated in it, and we'll see you back here for more Hoopsville on Sunday. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville on Sunday night. Good night, everybody.